Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Yeah, and then for the main, we've got Black Widow, we've got Loki season 1, and then if we want to talk about Rick and Morty, we can.
Yeah, Rick and Loki, you mean.
Rick and Loki, that's right.
Yeah. The Rick and Loki podcast. Welcome to the Rick and Loki podcast.
This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to this podcast, Season 4, Episode 4, also known as Episode 88. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario. I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there.
And I'm also joined by Hama Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Actually, you got to do one thing real quick.
Did you just call him Hama?
Hama Lopez.
Hama.
It's actually, it's not Jaime, it's Hame, right? Or something like that.
If you want to be a stickler, it's a flat. It's not a rising or descending tone at the end. It's flat.
Don't put the emphasis on their syllable. We acknowledge once again, we acknowledge that we are the lands we are sitting on, where we are recording at the moment, are situated on the Greater Toronto Area, land of the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. So we're just doing our land acknowledgement stuff these days because out of due respect. We'll start with fact check, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Let's do that. What do you say? All right. So, U.S. Senator George Hearst was the father of William Randolph Hearst. He's the guy that was portrayed in the movie Mank that I tried to remember last time we were on. And that was the basis of the story Mank was writing at the time was Citizen Kane. So he based his Citizen Kane on William Randolph Hearst. And Tess, played by Paris Booth, is the daughter of Texan Powers Booth. Tess was not the woman that I thought was on what's that called again? Deadwood, yeah. Paula Malcolmson, who's actually Irish, is the one I thought was the daughter of. But no, Tess was one of the ladies of ill repute. Let's just say, keep this on television. And then also Fiona Dorff played in one of the Shazami women of ill repute. Is the daughter of Brad Dorff, who plays the Doctor. Friend of mine, Rick Sarabia's favorite actor of all time. And also, I always get this wrong. I don't know. I used to have this mental block. I used to think Sam Shepard and Sam Elliott were the same person. Just one with a beard, one with a mustache, and one without. But it turns out that Sam Elliott is, in fact, the narrator of The Big Lebowski and not Sam Shepard. Rest in peace. That's the fact check. Any fact checks for you guys? No?
No, I just changed the note to say Lebowski, not Lebowski. So
Lebowski?
I don't speak French, but maybe it's Bowski or Lebowski.
Lebowski.
It's the dude.
The dude, man. It really pulls the room together. That's like your opinion, man. All right. Now we can move on. Where Jonathan's up with some headlines. All
right. Well, I know we're all eager to, we're going to have a nice chat today about Black Widow. We're going to have a nice chat about Loki, maybe a little Rick and Morty in there. We're going to talk about some good stuff, but I thought we'd kick off our podcast with some Star Trek stuff since we're a Trek podcast, and we've got some good stuff over the last little bit. So we're going to dig in. We got a trailer for Star Trek Picard Season 2 with the return of Q prominently featured. And it's...
I have a question about that, though.
Yeah, it's a little head-scratchy. So what did you guys make of this trailer?
My first question is, why does Q age?
Well, I think he's probably trying to keep pace with Picard. They could have, I'm sure, CGI'd the actor to make him look younger, but instead they decided to let him sort of embrace it.
Yeah, John Delancey, great
John
guy,
Delancey, yes,
all around. But the first trailer where Picard's going on, or Patrick Stewart's going on about time, is that the one where Q comes in at the end and says the trial never ended?
That was the little teaser that they put out,
yeah.
And then they put out this second one that you actually see him, and he's in the flesh with his gray hair, and
right, yeah.
And then we get a little bit more of a glimpse of clearly something timey-wimey has happened because Annika Hansen no longer is 7 of 9, and
right.
There's different uniforms and different insignias for theoretically Starfleet.
Loki's been at it again, in other words, right?
Yeah, really. Like when the multiverse comes a knock, and apparently it takes out all comers. What did you guys make of this? I don't know if there's enough there to really sink your teeth into. It certainly whet my appetite. I want to see what happens, but I don't know if there's a lot to really understand about what happened there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think, again, I never used to read the back of the videos when I went to rent videos because I didn't like to be spoiled. But I don't know. I think I just knowing that Q is going to be somehow involved in the story. In fact, I almost didn't want them to tell us that Q was going to be, or, just leave it and just have him be like a complete surprise, like Harry Mudd was in Discovery, right? So they should have just left that for a surprise, right? I don't know. It's good. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It's not till like 2022 though, right?
Yeah, that's all it says. Timeline as far as sort of what we can expect. I know we're going to get Lower Decks Season 2 starting in August. I think we're going to segue from that into Discovery Season 4. And then, yeah, that would put us in early 2022 for Picard Season 2.
I'm pretty sure we talked about Lower Decks just after the introductions there, by the way. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Speaking of Mr. Star Trek there, we've got another little interesting...
404 is what we got, though.
Oh, is it not coming up, the Gizmodo?
They changed the URL. I had to search for Gizmodo.
Oh, did you fix it? Oh.
I did not fix it because I accidentally closed the tab. Let me hit my history.
I thought maybe Apple sued them or something.
Or the good folks at
them and their
CBS Viacom. Take that down. You're not allowed to talk about our new Star Trek movie?
Could be.
Well, either way.
We can talk about it.
They can't stop us. They can't stop the signal.
Oh, I think there's just a trailing slash or something that's messing it up.
Oh, I see. There's a backslash.
Otherwise, it looks the same as what I just posted.
Okay, carry on.
All right. Well, we've got a new Star Trek movie that has actually been greenlit, which is pretty cool. This is going to be, well, who knows what this is going to be because they've announced the movie, but they haven't really announced what's going to be in it. So we are going to get, we got the information this week that's going to be directed by Matt Shakman, who is the director of all the episodes of WandaVision. And I think we can all agree he did an excellent job with that. He's been tapped to be the director of this new Star Trek film. And apparently it's happening, but they haven't clarified who's going to be in it, when it's going to be set, or anything about it.
Any Star Trek movies anymore?
Well, there's been all these, we've talked about it on this pod before. There's been all these rumors about which way they're going to go. There was talk that they were going to do one that involved Quentin Tarantino potentially working on it. They were talking about one that was going to be, a continuation of the sort of J.J. Abrams reboot. There was some discussion that... Noah Hawley from Legion was going to do a Star Trek film, and it doesn't seem clear if this is any of those. And beyond that, it's unclear completely whether or not Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto and all that cast are going to come back and do this again. So it's great news that we're getting another Star Trek flick because
they're going to bring Tuvix back.
Yeah, yes, maybe. I mean, maybe
Tuvix, the next generation. Yeah,
maybe they're going to go a completely different direction and do a different time or something else. But yeah, it's interesting that they've announced this. It's coming. Deadline.com broke this a couple of days ago, and yeah, it just doesn't. It's completely unclear as to where they're going to go with this. So I'm excited. I thought Matt Shakman did an excellent job with WandaVision. It's a beautiful looking TV show, and we know that he can handle some complex storytelling because that was pretty complex storytelling, and that he does get, really great performances from his actors, because that show is also extremely well acted.
Yeah.
I think those all bode well for what we're doing next. It's just, what is it?
The most important question I have, though, is it an odd number or an even number movie?
Ooh, that's a good question. So we got 10 of the original plus Next Generation, and now we've had 3 of the J.J. Abrams. So this would be 14 technically.
That holds promise for it then, I guess.
You're basing it all on that? That was the tip for you?
Yep.
Set the Las Vegas betting line based on that.
Even number odds, yep.
Yeah, really.
Exactly.
Well, then I guess this is a perfect segue into the fact that we are going to get a 4K. Star Trek, the motion picture, is going to boldly go into 4K. They are going
can
back.
only say, my God, man, why?
Do you think that was the problem? Do you think so far, if we just haven't been watching it in 4K, we need that 10-minute masturbatory exposition of the Enterprise at the beginning in 4K, that'll fix it?
Well, our listeners at home will know that I recently, 6 months ago, bought the entire package of Star Trek movies that were available on iTunes when they were on sale, right? I don't forget how many I got, but I think it was all the Captain Kirk, Leonard Nimoy ones. Mm-hmm. And I actually sat and watched the motion picture again, probably for the 3rd or 4th time in my entire life. I am so done with that movie. I'm sorry. It is just vile. I mean, The Phantom Menace is an amazing movie compared to the motion picture after waiting so many years for, a franchise story to be told in such a way, right? It was just inconceivably bad.
And now it's in 4K.
Now it's in 4K.
Yeah, so they're doing a complete restoration,
which I'll never watch, by the way.
And apparently they're going to do a 6 to 8 month restoration, and they are going to debut it exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Well, then I won't see it for sure. That's good.
Yeah.
Are we going to have Paramount Plus here in Canada?
Well, we do by proxy, because a lot of that stuff ends up on our Crave here in Canada. The question is, will this? But the question also is, do we want it to?
No. Yeah, that's true. I was going to say, are people going to pay to watch this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What's your opinion, Jaime? We basically fricasseed this one.
I mean, I'd rather have it in 4K than not 4K. I mean, I'm not going to complain about that, full restoration. I'd like to see this stuff done for just about everything that's out there. There's the fan stuff we mentioned for Deep Space Nine.
So the money they spent on this money they spent on making this movie into 4K, should that not have gone into Deep Space or Voyager?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like with the recurring revenue and the stream from Paramount Plus, it should be easier to finance stuff like this. Of all right, we're going to get people excited, come check it out, see it the way you've never seen it, and then it's good for.
Why don't they just make it into a 3D movie or IMAX or something? And
I mean, heck, you might as well.
Your eyes would bleed in even more high def, right?
So you can fall asleep to the, really, really dull stretches of the film. Am I not being
clear about my opinion of this movie?
No, I think we've got a sense of how you feel about it.
All right, good.
All right, let's move on to some more positive stuff.
It's so bad. I mean, there's 20 minutes of them going into the anomaly, whatever. 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you can even drop acid and enjoy it. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's longer than most acid trips.
Yeah. Yep.
And the visual effects aren't nearly as good.
That is true.
All right, on to good news. So the Emmy Award nominations were announced this week, and it was a huge, huge victory for genre material. We got a ton of nominations for some of our favorite fare from this past year. Things like WandaVision, things like The Mandalorian, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, The Boys. We got a lot of really good reaction to this material. So, WandaVision's up for Best Limited Series. The Mandalorian is up for Best Drama, which is a huge deal.
Wow.
The Boys is up for Best Drama.
Wow.
Some huge stuff in here. So, Outstanding Drama Series, The Boys and Mandalorian, Lovecraft Country, which is also part of our milieu, Handmaid's Tale is also in there, and it's up against sort of more traditional stuff: Bridgerton, The Crown, Pose, which I've never seen, and This Is Us. I'm not sure how they some of these categories are a little off. The outstanding limited series section is just a murderer's row this year because it's WandaVision is up against The Queen's Gambit, which was amazing, Mayor of Easttown, which everybody loves, Underground Railroad, I May Destroy You, which again is a critical darling. So that's a huge category. And then nominations galore here. So Jonathan Majors got nominated for Lovecraft Country for outstanding lead actor in a drama. We'll be talking more about Jonathan Majors a little bit later in this podcast. We've got Jurnee Smollett, also from Lovecraft Country, as lead actress. We've got Giancarlo Esposito as supporting actor in a drama for The Mandalorian. We've got, let's see, oh my goodness, there's so many. And then, again, this is just sort of the superficial stuff that by the time you get into, or this is all the heavy stuff, you get into the smaller stuff. Okay, Paul Bettany for WandaVision for outstanding lead actor in a limited series. We've got Elizabeth Olsen for WandaVision for lead actress. Supporting actress Catherine Hahn, of course. We'd be disappointed if she didn't get nominated there. Outstanding guest actor, guest actor Timothy Olyphant for The Mandalorian, Carl Weathers for The Mandalorian, Don Cheadle for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Courtney B. Vance for Lovecraft Country. So this is a huge year for these types of shows, and of course, the show that we're going to talk about a little bit later in Loki didn't qualify because it didn't make it under the time for submission, but it's a pretty impressive list. The Mandalorian actually finished tied with The Crown for the most nominations. Now, again, some of those are obviously technical Emmys for visual effects, music, a lot of makeup, all kinds of other things, but still really, really impressive amount of things. WandaVision got 23, Mandalorian got 24 nominations. Disney Plus got 50 nominations this year.
Wow.
And that's their way of saying we're not just here for like your money, we're here to win, and that's pretty big.
Right. Yeah.
Looking at this list here, I'm like, I see a snub for outstanding host for a reality or reality competition program. So I'm looking at this list, and it's a fine list, but you know who it's missing? Canada's own Will Arnett, host of Lego Masters.
Lego Masters, yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of which, just on a side note here, I started listening to a podcast yesterday. Actually, again, it was, I think, a Facebook event coming up. Will Arnett and Justin Bateman and the other guy from Sean Hayes.
Oh yeah, they have a podcast. Yeah,
it's hilarious. They make us look like fools, right? Because it's like of course, Justin Bateman and Will Arnett have this sort of brother thing.
Jason Bateman.
Sorry, yeah. Jason Bateman has this. They have this sort of brotherly sort of fellow actor kind of vibe going, and Will Arnett with the jabs every now and then is just hilarious, right? So yeah, I definitely recommend that podcast.
And they're coming to perform it live here in Toronto.
Yeah, that's what sort of clued me in, because I like those three actors, but the three of them in the same room at the same time it's hilarious.
Yeah. Toronto's own Will Arnett. Gotta throw that in there.
That's true, yeah. Sorry. But I do want to say one thing, though. As you mentioned, the nominations like Giancarlo Esposito. I mean, it's like why? He's Gus Fring with a blaster,
Well, the one that's really stupefying is Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle is in Falcon and the Winter Soldier for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, that was dumb. Yeah, there are some obvious ones that are just like, no, I don't think so. I mean, and the Crown's the Crown versus Mandalorian. You said, I think.
Crown's going to win a lot of these.
Yeah, because it's a great show, but again, it's the whole, I'm surprised this many sci-fi, pieces are nominated at this kind of level. But I guess that's the thing. I'm sure, what's his name? The director who doesn't like Marvel movies, the Godfather guy.
Was it Scorsese?
Scorsese, yeah. He's going to be, he's going to be super angry if any of these win, but,
I think
real drama.
For me, this feels like validation from a different type of community, that this isn't just pap. It's not like, just children's programming that some adults like. It's saying like this is some legitimately good quality television with some outstanding performances. It's something we've known, but I think for a larger audience who looks at this says like maybe this changes some minds and people are like, oh, this is like legit good quality programming, not just what's the what did they call it for Game of Thrones? Boobs and dragons, you know, like it's
Right.
it's actually there's some real substance to this material.
Well,
Again,
back in the day, they used to call it pulp fiction, right? I mean,
For sure.
pulp, yeah, because it was like, you know, Heinlein and Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke were just banging out these stories, and Ray Bradbury and all that kind of stuff, right? But we all know from having read them and followed the arc, so they're amazing stories, right? And as you with your graphic novels, you know, like kind of, you know, that's another thing that obviously these stories, you know, I mean, they do become repetitive in some senses. I mean, like we'll talk about Loki in a bit, but you know, like the ending was, I'm sorry, but anyway, but you know, like the fact that, you know, these stories actually do sort of compete with your Dickens and your, you know, your heavy duty drama stories, right? Like good fiction.
The
anyway.
one that I was a little disappointed by, you know, they did touch a lot of bases that I was happy to see. The one that I was a little disappointed was that they didn't recognize Anthony Mackie for his performance in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I thought he was really, really quite captivating at times. Especially having now watched 3 different Marvel television shows on Disney Plus. It was a little heavy-handed, obviously, in what it was trying to do, but I thought he was really quite good in that, and I'm a little disappointed he didn't get a little more acknowledgement, especially when they took the time to acknowledge Don Cheadle's "I was there for 2 minutes, gave a little pep talk, and was never seen again" moment too. So that was the only one that really sort of stood out to me as a bit of a snub beyond Will Arnett.
Right, cool. All right, well, this shout out goes to Gord and his Castle Grayskull story from childhood.
Yes.
Over to you, Jaime.
Yeah, so I was going to say Canada's own Kevin Smith, but no, he's actually from America.
New Jersey.
Yeah,
we get to claim that one.
He's an honorary Canadian. He loves us.
Yeah, he's got so many like appearances in Canadian things that I just sort of, and you know, comedians tend to be Canadian anyways in the US. It's like your greatest export to us, apparently.
That and softwood lumber, yeah.
Right. So he's apparently showrunner for the new Masters of the Universe continuation or reboot. They say reboot on this link. I'm a little unclear.
It's not. It's actually meant to come right after the original animated series. It's sort of supposed to continue the story.
That's what I was feeling. So I felt like it was not a reboot, you know, properly.
Is it going to be in the same style?
No, it's much more manga-esque or anime-esque. Sorry, Jaime, we're stepping all over your story here.
No. I mean, I'm just excited especially because it's coming up soon. This isn't 2022. This is next week. Yeah. So by the time you get this recording, start looking in your Netflix because pretty soon you're going to have it go from your watch list to, or no, what do they call it? Your wait list or whatever it is they put for the, you know, coming soon stuff into. No, it's actually in your watch list. So it has Mark Hamill as Skeletor, if I caught correctly from watching the trailer. It seems like these folks absolutely loved the 1980s cartoon and the goofy toy line that went with it. So I'm excited to see this.
And they've got a killer cast. Like, as you say, Mark Hamill is Skeletor. Chris Wood, who was on Supergirl, is He-Man. Sarah Michelle Gellar is Teela. Lena Headey from Game of Thrones is Evil Lynn. Alicia Silverstone is one of the voices. Kevin Conroy, who's for me the voice of Batman, is one of the voices. It's a real substantive thing. Like, they didn't mess around with this. And yeah, Kevin is the showrunner, and he's also written episodes. He brought in Mark Bernardin, who was one of his podcast partners and also a very talented writer in his own right, comic writer, and he is also writing episodes. Like, they really, you know, went after this. They're not doing the, you know, we're just kicking it out, making a new thing and just putting a brand name on it. They really brought in some very talented people to work on it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, some of the designs. So for you kiddos who weren't around, let me, and we'll have the link in the show notes for those of you transporting it home. So the second to last image in this article is of Moss Man.
Yeah.
And let me tell you that had we not already selected Kraken for the hockey team, the Moss Man here seems like a really cool mascot idea. And let me also direct you to the Googles. Go look up the 1980s Moss Man toy, which was basically just like a vaguely furry, beflocked looking character that, the gimmick was he smelled,
Mossy?
like a pine tree or like the little, the ones you would put on your car dashboard sort of thing.
Oh yeah, the plastic actually had a scent to it, you mean?
It had a scent to it. Yeah,
well, no, it was almost like velvet or velour or something. It was fuzzy. It was actually like had a texture.
Yeah, and he had a scent, just kind of the opposite of Stink or the
skunk character. Yes.
The skunk one that smelled weird and awful. So I'm really excited to see how even a very on paper goofy character like the Moss Man looks like an incredible character design for this show.
Yeah, the action figure for this one. I'll throw this one for Tim. Jaime, you probably won't get this reference, but he looks like a green version of Andre the Giant as Bigfoot from the $6 Million Man.
Right, I'm looking at him now on the Googles. Wow,
yeah, it's a thing. Yeah, I must admit, I'm not always sold on manga-esque takes on sort of more traditional animation styles. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but this looks really slick.
Cool. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I was looking forward to it, so I won't.
Well, Jaime and I will talk about it on the next episode.
Sure. Okay. Carry on, Jaime. You're up next.
Yeah, so HBO Max is getting new animated Batman and Superman shows. So Batman, the Caped Crusader, which the art style looks very 1940s-esque Batman from the design. It claims to be a darker tone, which would kind of make sense because Batman used to be like pretty psychotic in those early ones. Let me tell you, kiddos, go look at the comics. And as noted in this article, the polar opposite of that is the not teens, but certainly youngins of Superman as Clark Kent and Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen begin their journalistic careers. So it's kind of more like the tweens version of the Superman story. And it looks, in contrast to the Batman Cape Crusader that's very dark and moody, this seems very cheerful and poppy.
Yeah.
So excited to see. I have like the DC animated stuff a lot. So excited to see a new show.
And all this stuff is destined for HBO Max?
That's what it says here. So I don't really know what that means for you all. Do you have Max? I don't think it's in that region.
No, but Max stuff tends up here too. A lot of it ends up on Crave again because there's a partnership between HBO and Bell here, which owns Crave.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we will get that material because we've been getting it a little inconsistently. Some of particularly the TV stuff has been a little bit scattershot. It's some on this channel, some on that channel. So I'm hoping they keep the HBO Max stuff on HBO Max in Crave here.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, speaking of Superman, I think we skipped over Richard Donner, right?
Oh, we did. Yes, we did. Well, yeah, that one hurt. Richard Donner passed away last week, age of 91. Of course, very famously directed the first two Superman motion pictures from the late 1970s, early 1980s, and sort of very famously sort of did them all at once and had this huge grand vision that was very expensive and ran into issues with the studio. There are, of course, now the Donner cuts of those movies, and they're widely regarded as still classics in their own right. You will believe a man can fly, and he really did.
Right.
Like it really
so
was.
Was that Richard Donner's work, the fly-by-wire stuff that they did there? Or?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, he was the one who really brought Superman to a real place where he was an actual flying character. Up until then, outside of cartoons, it was always he'd just sort of jump into the room, and it was a little
jump out of the window, and then you'd see him lying on a table that was clearly photoshopped out.
Yeah, it was really kind of hacky and cheesy. Where in this one, it worked on me. I was a little kid when it came out, and I was all in on the Superman picture. So a big part of my childhood.
I
remember them talking about how, I remember at the time they were showing how they achieved the effect and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember watching all those behind the scenes specials of how they did it, and a lot of that stuff they sort of carried forward into other things for the next 10 years. He was a real pioneer of that kind of filmmaking. Of course, beyond Superman, which was, of course, hugely influential, he also was the director of The Goonies. He was also Lethal Weapon, all Lethal Weapon movies.
All four of them?
Yeah, I think so. Really? And this guy was a powerhouse. He actually did go back about 10 or 11 years ago, and did some comics writing along with Jeff Johns, who was actually his assistant, I believe, for a while. Jeff Johns now, of course, executive producer and high up muckety muck at Warner Brothers. He was huge. And again, you want to go backwards with him? Here we go. The Twilight Zone, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Gilligan's Island, Perry Mason, The Wild Wild West. Like, he was doing like classic TV shows. And then, of course, he did his first sort of breakthrough as a director in films was The Omen, which is, again, a classic horror flick. Yes, the Superman movies. And then, yes, carrying forward, how about this? Lady Hawk, again, a good genre movie. Scrooged, a classic Christmas movie. He was, also a huge producer in his later years alongside his wife, who's Lauren Schuler Donner. They were the producers of the X-Men movies, all the Free Willy movies. This is a huge titan in Hollywood. So his loss is a severe one. But man, what a legacy he left behind. This is incredible stuff.
Speaking of legacies, we have Amazon and that company they bought.
Yeah, this was a good one. This happened not long after our last recording, so bear with us. But Amazon decided to throw in on the acquisition game. We love talking about the streaming services and their master plans. Amazon bought MGM Studios for $8.45 billion US. And that got them, a whole lot of stuff that they can put onto the Amazon Prime content pile. And it also gets them back into the game with companies like Netflix that are producing movies for movie theaters now, because they're also going to be able to put out movies like the new James Bond movie is theirs now. If they want, they could put it straight onto Amazon Prime, or they can put it, out in theaters for a while and then exclusively available for watching after that on Amazon Prime. So this is a big acquisition. 4,000 movies in their catalog, 17,000 TV shows, and it really just gooses up the content library for Amazon Prime in a huge way. As far as franchises of note, of course, we talked about James Bond. All of those movies are part of this. Rocky, all the Pink Panther movies. There's a lot of content in there. There's a list here. So, Basic Instinct, Legally Blonde. So these are all things they can now license too. They can make more of. Silence of the Lambs, Stargate, RoboCop, Tomb Raider, Thomas Crown Affair, and on the TV side, Handmaid's Tale, Fargo, Vikings. So there's a lot of content there that they can not only have and publish, but then they have the rights to them too, so they can make more of these things too. So this could be a really interesting one as far as what it opens up for Amazon Prime as a player in the streaming wars. Jaime, I know you love streaming stories. What do you think?
I think it's the right move. It's a move that I think would have made a little bit more sense for Apple as it tries to really, really launch Apple TV Plus into something you pay for on a regular basis. It does make sense for Amazon, sure, because they do have their own originals and stuff. They just seem to focus on it less. I think they're perfectly fine to sell you your copy, be it Blu-ray or DVD or streaming. Like they seem to be totally fine with that. So I think it's a good move to build out that area. It seems to give a hint of where they're trying to go with this, that they're emphasizing it more on that recurring revenue side. So I think it's a solid move.
Yeah,
I think it's a real solid move.
Well, like I say, I think in my mind this puts them. I don't think they're quite there with, obviously, Disney's acquisition of Fox was a massive one. I do think that there's some more moves to be made out there in the marketplace, but we're seeing more and more of these sort of classic libraries of material. That's what it really comes down to, is IP, right? It's these things you can make more of and then also sell products off of the existing things that are really, they're real nice things to add to the catalog. And this is a good one for them. Again, I don't think doesn't compare to Disney's acquisition of Fox, but then it does make you sort of look sideways at some of the other studios that are out there now and think, like, how long before somebody ponies up a couple extra bucks and, is it time for Apple to buy Sony? Is it, where do these things go from here? When you see this game unfolding the way it is, what's the next domino to fall?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see. I do think the consolidation will occur. I mean, we talked about collecting every kind of
gotta catch them all.
Yeah, gotta catch them all, Pokemon style, for all the streaming services. That can't last forever. Nobody's going to pay $5 a month for random streaming service out there. But put it together with something else, the way that Disney has with Disney Plus. Put it together with other things, the way that let's say like Netflix does or HBO Max, and it can work. I think. Yeah. So I think we'll see. 5 top tier, and then 7 is really like the realistic number.
Yeah,
I don't see there being hundreds of streaming services in the decade to come.
Yeah. All right, back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We also, a little while back, got the first trailer drop for The Eternals. And The Eternals is a bit of an obscure Marvel title. I gotta admit, I've read a couple of Eternals books over the years. Neil Gaiman, famously of The Sandman, did a limited series that was quite good, that I enjoyed. But it's a little bit, of a sort of deep dive into the comics canon to get to the Eternals. So it's an unusual choice. Now, that being said, we said the same thing when it was Guardians of the Galaxy. We said the same thing when it was Ant-Man. There's all these things where they're like, are they going to do that? Really?
Yeah, we said the same thing when Apple came out with a phone too.
Sure. Some of these things you're like, they're going to do that? That's going to be a thing? Okay, well, maybe it'll work. I'm sure it'll work because that, they just so far, you just every time you're betting on them to fall on their faces, and so far they are still upright. So it's a thing. The trailer is very epic looking. It looks beautiful. The director is Chloe Zhao, who of course won the Oscar for Best Director for Nomadland this year. And some familiar faces in there: Angelina Jolie, Kit Harington, Richard Madden also from Game of Thrones, Gemma Chan's in there, Salma Hayek's in there, Kumail Nanjiani's in there, and it is a teaser. It's not a I don't think we have a really good clarity on what's going to happen there, but it's definitely an interesting looking picture. What did you guys make of this trailer?
I mean, it looks good. I mean, I think what I said at the beginning was that Marvel does know how to put on a good trailer, at least. We're going to talk about Black Widow in a little bit too, and again, that trailer was really interesting, but they don't seem to drop the ball much when it comes to movies, right?
No. And it does look different. And again, I think we'll talk about this. Green Lantern was
DC, right?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
We did talk about this, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more when we get into Black Widow. I like the MCU shows that they're showing on Disney Plus, but you can tell that this is a movie. It looks better. It looks bigger. It looks like they spent a little more, even in the trailer.
Just in time for the theaters to reopen too, right?
Well, yeah, this one's not coming till November. So, November 5th is when it's supposed to be released. So we've got a little bit of time. Hopefully, we'll be able to enjoy that one with a bucket of popcorn back in the theater again.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, what did you make of Eternals?
Yeah, I was going to say that it does look like a very different kind of film. It's got a different feel to it, which I think is great because Marvel's given directors room to do that. It certainly is very different feel from, say, Thor Ragnarok, different from the Winter Soldier. So I'm excited for that, and I'm sure the marketing folks were very excited to put from Academy Award winning director Chloe Zhao, right? So it looks good. People were wondering, like, okay, so the Eternals only get involved when it's like big deal stuff, and they didn't deem it worth their time to deal with the Thanos situation. So what is it that's causing them to intervene in world affairs for this thing is kind of an exciting thing to tease us with.
So arguably this is follow-up, it says here.
Yeah, we did talk about Moon Knight, and I think Oscar Isaac was rumored at the time to be in Disney Plus's Moon Knight series. It has subsequently been confirmed that he will, in fact, star as Moon Knight.
Cool.
Yeah, so more Disney Plus stuff coming in the future with more, pretty reasonably well-known people.
Cool. So my link here, a real quick one, is we talked about Star Trek Prodigy. This is a Star Trek podcast, after all. And Kate Mulgrew is coming back, obviously. obviously as Captain Catherine Janeway, but so and because it's like usually you don't get to see the people who are going to be voicing the characters, they introduce them here in this article. People who are going to be playing the various characters in the show, right? So, and Jason Manizukas, he gets around. He's in a lot of shows, right?
He's awesome. He's awesome in everything he does too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I love
I'm
Jason
excited for his
Mantzoukas.
character as Rexplode in Invincible. It was just incredible.
Yeah, and again, big mouth, and he's in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's everywhere, and he's awesome in everything. Good Place. He was so funny in Good Place. I don't think so. No, I think he's American.
Okay, because he's in a lot of Canadian shows. Because he was in that one with
Massachusetts. It says here.
Oh, okay. Oh, what do you know? Yep. So that's it. Check your show notes if you want to check out what the cast looks like before we get to see the Prodigy show. When is that show coming?
It says 2021, so I have to assume this fall, this winter. Maybe.
And is it 3D animated or animated, like hand drawn?
It looks. No, I don't know. It doesn't look like Lower Decks.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Like flat. Yeah.
And they show some screenshots in the link that you provided. So I had only seen the here. This shows the pictures, the headshots of the voice actors next to the character that they play, and that set of character images comes from the teaser poster that they gave us. It looks a little brighter, a little more cheerful. But when I look at what is I assume to be screenshots of individual scenes, I'm like, oh, it's kind of darker and moodier than I assumed.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Clone Wars kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah, somewhere between that and a Pixar movie. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems less Nickelodeon than I had assumed it would be. So interesting to be there.
Yeah.
Wait, and speaking of Bad Batch, have you guys been watching Bad Batch?
I have been.
I have not because I wanted to catch up, so I started watching Clone Wars from the beginning. I'm through the first 4 seasons, so I'm gonna just power straight through the rest and then into that. So I'll be ready soon.
I think I'm around season 4 of Clone Wars as well. But yeah, I've been watching this one too.
Yeah.
But, I have seen the episode where this crew is introduced in Clone Wars. Right? They're doing a simulation, like a battle simulation. I think it's the episode I was talking about before with the old clone. For some reason, there's an aged clone. It went wrong. Anyway.
Yep.
So that's my link.
For somebody like me who's an anime fan and has been awaiting for so long the final Evangelion movie of the 4-part series, it's coming effectively for free on Amazon Prime Video on August 13th. So Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.01 Thrice Upon a Time, take that subtitle, is coming to the service in over 240 countries and territories, so presumably in Canada as well. For those who are not familiar with these movies, so I'm going to get his name. Hideaki Anno, the director, has been kind of interesting. So the first movie, again, 4-part series of this movie, the Rebuild series for Evangelion, for the hugely popular Neon Genesis Evangelion franchise. So the first one came out September 2007. The next one, a couple years later, in June of 2009. A little bit longer for the third in November of 2012. This one came out in theaters in Japan in March of 2021. So there is quite the gap there. You're like, what was he doing? He's like, well, let me tell you, at a minimum, he was directing the American Godzilla movie, which irritated me to no end. I'm like, what are you doing? How did they let you out of the contract? Go finish this movie. But, he beat George R.R. Martin to the punch to finish out the series. So I guess I got to give him a little bit of credit. So,
so
it's like this trend of a decade.
It says it's going to be subtitled and dubbed in all these 240 countries. Are we getting a Canadian version? Will there be a lot of A's and how's it goings and...
Well, they say...
Hope they don't talk at yoga hosers, though.
They say optional dubbed dialogue in English, French, German, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, and 4 other languages. I don't know if those are like the surprise languages.
Yeah, bonus languages.
Yeah, it's dubbed in Scottish.
Scotch.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, or Welsh.
Yeah. Star Wars Visions is interesting. So this came out as a trailer recently for Disney Plus. These are short animated films done by various directors, kind of in the style of, I guess, Love, Sex, and Robots. No, wait, Love, Death? What's the proper title?
Death, Robots.
Love, Death, Robots? Thank you.
Or the Matrix.
Yes, I was going to go there.
The
Animatrix series. Yeah. Where wildly different animation styles, these short little stories based in using the mythology around Star Wars, which seems interesting. So that's cool. So there's a short look there as to what those would be.
All right, and since we were just talking briefly about streaming services, this is an article from CNBC, the name you trust, talks about the honeymoon is over for streaming services. And they've kind of put together some numbers in terms of subscriptions, in terms of what, because we've been wondering like who's going to win the day kind of thing, like who are the big winners. It's got NBC Universal, it's got Warner Brothers stuff, Discovery, and because we know it's like Netflix, and so there are actually numbers here. They've got numbers for Netflix, in terms of number of paid subscribers, 208 million, 7.4 million in US and Canada, and then you can sort of extrapolate from that what their sort of revenue is. And then the same thing with Disney Plus. They claim having 103 million subscribers, just a little bit less than half. They also roll in the Hulu numbers and ESPN Plus on that. Warner Brothers, HBO Max, and HBO. Amazon Prime Video, Amazon Prime, you can sort of extrapolate as well. NBC Peacock, of course, the one they can't figure out is Apple, because Apple doesn't give out any numbers, right? But sort of, the top of the top are the ones we predicted. Netflix, Disney, HBO, and Amazon are sort of the top ones. Peacock is holding up the back end there with 42 million. CBS, Viacom. It'll be interesting to see how far these shows go in terms of where they end up with, right? So they've got Apple down here at the bottom because they have no idea of the actual subscribers. And actually, we talked about this a little bit on More Than Just Code, didn't we, Jaime, about what's going to happen now that Apple is no longer it's no longer free for people, right? Like you can get a trial. I think, is it like a 3-month trial now or something like that, or 1 month trial, or?
Yeah, so to catch people up who haven't followed that for quite a while there, a little bit more than a year, because the pandemic sort of made everyone's plans different. The idea was you purchase qualified new Apple devices, iPhone, iPad, that sort of thing, and you get a free 1-year subscription to Apple TV Plus. And on More Than Just Code, we had speculated that, maybe this is because, look, they hardly have any shows. They kind of need to build up a backlog of content. Now that they do have a backlog of content, it kind of makes sense to trim that down to just 3 months to get you excited. Like, you watched this thing? Great. Did you enjoy Ted Lasso? Great. Continue to pay us for season 2 when it starts, now that you've caught up on season 1, right? Like, I think that's kind of the idea for them. And it makes sense as a maturation of their service.
Yeah, and they basically, if you got a phone on day one sort of thing, back in October, November, I'm trying to remember what year that was. Was it 2020 or 2019?
2019, I think, yeah.
Yeah, you ended up getting 18 months because they extended it till I think it just ended in July, or it's ending this month, right? The trial, the free trial extended. Yeah.
Just in time for Ted Lasso season 2.
Yeah, just in time. Yeah. Show on Apple.
Interesting that this article talks about ARPU, which is not the Simpsons character, just to be really clear. That is average revenue per user. And it is interesting to see, let's say like Disney's as a really good example, where they stand out to me as being different than, let me just double check, everybody else, where, well, I guess Warner Media is similar, where Disney, you would say, well, their average revenue per user globally is, a mere $3.99 compared to Netflix's $14 and change for US and Canada. It's like, well, yeah, but remember, that's not their only revenue stream. They get you excited to see, Raya and the Last Dragon, and then you buy the toys, and then you take your kid to Disney World, and then so on and so forth, right? So like Disney isn't selling toys. They don't have theme parks, and kind of the closest one here is maybe Warner Media that does have theme park affiliations. So interesting to think about the difference. Like my point is, there's not one single winning strategy, right? You can't just look at the average revenue and be like, well, there you go, there's the winner. It's like, well, what's the actual product? And I think for Disney Plus, it's not the actual product. It is the thing that helps them sell the other actual products.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're already starting to see a little proliferation of that theory in the comics world, where when Disney bought Fox, they also bought the IP for all the comic books that were spun out of Fox characters, including Aliens and Predator and some of those other ones. And now Marvel Comics is starting to republish some of those pieces of IP, and they're starting to publish new books based on those things. So we're starting to see the sort of groundswell of those things as well. So you're right. It's not just, hey, we bought this thing, we're going to put it on our, we're going to show an old movie. We're going to spawn this into 20 new ways to make money.
Right. Cool. Well, we didn't talk about Peacock, but they were on the list as well. But so this next story, how many centers are on Peacock?
Yes and no, because it's incredibly confusing. So let me just read the title and then I'll explain what I think I understand. So, as if it wasn't difficult enough to collect them all when it comes to streaming services, and which service has this thing, and we say, well, there's some cases where people are pulling back their content, or I should say, not extending the licenses. So, as an example, The Office is no longer on Netflix because the contract was not extended because NBC wants to put that, NBC Universal wants to put that on its own Peacock service, right? That's already kind of complicated enough because people got kind of used to the way things were. Now, what if I told you that when movies come out in theaters, they will have, after that, a 4-month exclusive run on Peacock, and then this deal here is that the Universal films will then go to Prime Video after that 4 months. So you'll definitely need the where can I stream service to tell you where this thing is if you don't follow this very, very closely. Or if you're like me and you're cheap, you say, so it's effectively free for me on Amazon after 4 months. Got it.
Right.
I just waited out for Jurassic World Dominion if I wanted to stream that versus seeing it in the theaters, as an example.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, this next one, actually, I think Jaime probably should have introduced, but it's called What If, and it is a Marvel thing, right? It's more of an animated style retelling of stories. It's like different multiverse-y kind of stuff. Yeah, we'll rip into it then.
I think now that I'm looking at this, well, why don't we circle back to What If in our conversation about Loki?
Okay, all right.
Because I feel like that's probably where it belongs.
Yeah, and I was going to say, when we get into Loki, remind me to talk about the last Avenger movie too, right? Okay, so let's move on to Deadpool.
So last but not least for our headlines, there was a very, very funny video posted this week where, as a promotion for the new Ryan Reynolds film Free Guy, which is about a character in a video game who sort of gains autonomy and starts to sort of rebel against the game, and looks funny, objectively funny. It looks funny and goofy and fine. They decided to promote it that what they should do is get Ryan Reynolds in his Deadpool costume playing Deadpool and Taika Waititi as Korg from Thor Ragnarok to sit down on a sofa and do the first Fox property, Disney MCU property crossover with a 4 or 5 minute video of these two sitting on a couch talking about what they see in the trailer. And it's funny. It's really funny. It's
a bit meta too because Taika Waititi is mentioned and so is Ryan Reynolds, right?
Yeah, so they're talking they're talking about themselves as the actors, but also acknowledging that they themselves are the actors viewing themselves. It's very, very meta, but very, very funny. And just again, the crossover we didn't know we needed, and yet I'm so glad they did because it's just so goofy. It's just so unbelievably goofy watching these two, playing their characters to their utmost.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Taika Waititi, did he direct Thor Ragnarok?
He did.
That's right.
And he's directing Love and Thunder, the next one too.
Right. Okay.
And looks like he's in this one too. This Free Guy.
Right, honey.
This looks fun in a Last Days of Fox fire sale kind of way.
Yes. Oh my God. What a great line.
That's a bit of a ribbing of this situation.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll put the link in the show notes. Please, if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, make the time for that one. It's well worth it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we're at the main part of our show where we turn our attention to, and this time we're going to turn our attention to 3 properties. One we've been waiting for I don't know how long, Black Widow, which we almost got to see in a theater.
Almost. So close.
We could tomorrow. We could go actually tonight, I think, 12:01. We could probably go see a midnight showing of Black Widow.
Are they coming right back with the midnight showings?
I don't know, but I mean, like, we can go get a beer at a restaurant at 12:01 tonight, right?
Madness. Inside and everything.
Yeah, inside. Yeah, with masks on. I don't know how you drink beer with a mask on, but that's beside the point.
It's filtered for your protection.
Yeah, true. Navy SEALs. So yeah, we're going to talk about the Black Widow movie, and we're also going to talk about Loki season 1 now that it's wrapped up, and a little bit of Mork and Mindy. No,
Mork and
Rick
Mindy?
and Morty. Yeah, Rick and Morty.
Nanu.
Nanu. Yeah, there we go. All right, so let's. How about I just start with Black Widow, and then we can, you guys can riff on that a bit. So because I'm coming at it from, I think I'm probably the least attached to these properties. I like the Black Widow character. I like Scarlett Johansson a lot, and I also got to mention too, Florence Pugh is also what I saw her for the first time. I didn't realize I'd seen her before, but I saw her for the first time in that movie or TV show, that miniseries that they did about Florence Pugh, because she's been in a ton of things that I had not seen. I didn't see Lady Macbeth. I didn't see that, but the show I'm thinking of is called, where the heck?
Yeah, she was in the Little Women remake that they did.
Yeah, Little Women.
And she was in Midsummer, which got a lot of, that's I think one of the ones that really sort of propelled her too. She was that horror movie.
It was like a detective thing. She was like a spy girl kind of vibe.
Was it The Little Drummer Girl?
Little Drummer Girl, yes. She was in Little Drummer Girl, which was a really, it was sort of a spy kind of.
Yeah, it was like a miniseries, yeah.
Yeah. She was great in that. I mean, she played this sort of, kind of got rolled into this role, like she pulled into the, you know how like the I don't know what you call the character when they're the protagonist when they're dragged into a role, like in, they have to save the world kind of thing.
Yeah, the unwilling, yes.
Yeah. She's really good in that. Anyway, so I really liked her. She's English, obviously, but I loved her performance as, it's what, Natasha and...
Oh, she's Yelena.
Yelena, as the younger sister of this fake family. And it had that sort of a real, the Americans kind of show where the father and the mother, and of course I was surprised to see who played the mother, Rachel Weisz as the mother, and she like this fake family that just has to like pack up their bags and leave, and the two kids are like, what are we doing now? The older daughter knows kind of sort of what's going on, but the younger daughter doesn't. She thinks this is a real family that she's living in the States, in the Midwest, right? And then they have to go back and become part of this the Red Room, I think they call it, right?
Yeah, the spy organization. Yeah,
and the women in the Red Room are not treated very well, and we find out as the story progresses about the sort of horrors of the training that they had in, but they're amazing, killing machines kind of thing. But I really like the way this movie blew up real good. I mean, it wasn't just a big popcorn movie as Jaime likes to watch, but because it had a really compelling story, and of course because we sort of know the end game for Black Widow because of if you've seen the other
literally the end game,
yeah, literally. But it sort of builds up, and I mean, a lot of fantastic sort of like special effects, and how could these human bodies possibly survive these things? But a lot of good twists and turns in the story. I really enjoyed it. It just, again, Marvel puts on a really good show, I gotta say. In fact, I probably enjoyed this one, and again, I may get stomped on by Jonathan in a minute. I don't know. I don't care. But yeah, I enjoyed this one as much as I do the other, the rest of the Avenger movies. I thought it was a really, really good movie.
Well, I'm not going to stomp on you. So how about that?
Okay. All right.
What I'm going to say to you is this is the best not Bond movie since the Bourne movies.
For sure.
It's essentially a Bond movie with some very likable, instead of being sort of the solo agent, it's sort of the bringing the characters together and working as a team. And there's a lot of charm. You're right. Like, we've already gotten really used to Scarlett Johansson as the Black Widow, and we like her. And we know sort of her demise is coming in sort of the timeline loop. I'll talk about the timeline stuff in a few minutes, but her sort of, connection to the past, and then going and reconnecting with her sister, and then reconnecting with her quote unquote parents, who are Rachel Weisz and David Harbour. And they're all really funny and charming and likable. David Harbour is so much fun in this movie.
Yeah,
he's amazing. Yeah. He's just as good as he is in Stranger Things, and by far better than he was in Hellboy. it's a very likable movie. It blows up really good. The action scenes are really, really well done, and it knows its scope. It never reaches beyond. It's not, as I was telling my wife, it never really reaches for anything that it can't attain. It's not like there's a magic glove that's going to change the universe. It's not, radioactive monsters. It never really reaches beyond what it is, which is, I have to go back and help these people, and I want to, get the bad guy. And it really does function in a really James Bond. Of course, it's heightened. Of course, it's not realistic, the floating city and everything else, but it really does sort of keep in its lane really, really well, and it does it incredibly effectively. And it, as I say, it's extremely charming. I thought this was actually a really, really enjoyable movie. I will now circle back to my point on the timeline, which is to say, where the hell was this movie 4 years ago?
Yeah.
If they had made this movie in continuity, time-wise, where it's supposed to fall, which is when she's on the run, it would have been perfect. Perfect.
Oh, was it supposed to come out then? Or
well, no, it wasn't. This is their way of basically saying, we messed up. We should have done this movie before. Now, as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, this is so stupid. They should have done this movie then, because it would have fit in.
Because if you didn't know the story about Civil War and all that kind of stuff, you wouldn't know why. What she possibly have done? She starts out as a suspiciously negative character with the very first scene you see her in. And in fact, I question, was that the same general?
Yes. Yeah, that's Thunderbolt Ross.
Same actor.
Yeah, same actor.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was a good continuity piece too. But I got to say, before we get too deep in it, I love the banter between the two sisters.
Oh,
especially,
great!
Why do you do that thing with your hair? And then she gets down in the pose with the almost like a yoga pose with the one hand.
Yeah, the hero landing.
You do that thing with your hair, and she twists her head in a sort of really awkward way, and you're such a poser, right? And then when she lands, she jumps out of the plane and she lands. She does the Scarlett Johansson, trademark Black Widow pose, and she goes, "No, it's such a posing thing to do." Right?
Yeah. No, again, there's lots of little charming moments in this movie. As I say, I think the thing that really just sort of stands out is because obviously what's going to befall Natasha, it loses its stakes, and that's the only sort of knock I will throw at it. Is of course that.
Well, she has to survive.
She has to survive.
Point, right?
Chances are, of course, the movie really is about setting up Yelena, Florence Pugh's character, as the new sort of super spy in a leather catsuit kind of character.
Oh, you think this is a baton being handed over?
It's 100%. It's 100% that.
Mm-hmm. Especially with the end credits scene.
Absolutely.
Which we'll have to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. So I found myself thinking, like, wow, they really dropped the ball on this, because this would have been a really, really great film to have had come after Civil War and really sort of hammer home that sort of isolation she's feeling. And it would have set things up for the last two Avengers movies really well, where, that she was on the run and she'd had this sort of cathartic moment with her family. And it would have made that her moment of her passing, which was already kind of agonizing for longtime Marvel fans, hard. It would have made it even that much more impactful. But then I started thinking about it and thought, you know what, though? Marvel's playing such a long game here. Nobody in 10 years is going to care. They're not going to watch them in the order they came out. They're going to do a smash cut. They're going to watch this in the order in which they make sense to watch. And they're going to just watch Civil War and then watch this and then continue watching the movies in the order they came. And it doesn't matter. Right now, it seems out of place. In the long run, it won't. And it won't matter at all.
Well, it's like Falcon and the Winter Soldier has to be seen after Endgame. I mean, because the whole what happened to Captain America kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but this one, you could watch it now, and then obviously there's the scene with Yelena, the bonus scene that Jaime referenced, and I'll pass it over to you for that one, Jaime. But I think other than
spoilers, by the way, yeah.
Other than that, this movie could be watched without any problem. Down, in that way.
I think you could watch this even if you didn't know who Black Widow was.
It would be just a good movie. Although again, so much of the MCU, it really is just about stacking houses here. They're putting one on top of the other.
Well, I mean the whole ribbing her about her fame as an Avenger too. I mean that kind of a running joke through the whole movie as well, right?
Yeah. All right, Jaime, what do you got?
Yeah, I apologize because I forget what Julia Louise-Dreyfus's character
she's Val.
name is.
Oh,
Val.
Val. Okay, thank you. So if you recall, this movie was supposed to kick things off, right? So it is supposed to come out before The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which The Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to come out before WandaVision. So we've got things a little out of order. So this would have been the first appearance of Val and her at the tail end there trying to recruit Yelena. Kind of makes sense, given that we saw her as recruiting Walker is the TS agent, right? As I called him.
TS agent.
Yeah. So US agent, I could see that, like, oh, you might be building an Avengers team, right? Because you've got a Black Widow, you've got a Captain America, or their heir apparents, which is going to be interesting as another thread here. So to your point, Jonathan, I think Disney Plus does have the release order, and then I think they have chronological order. I don't know if chronological order goes as far as moving the end credits and mid credit scenes.
Oh, I hope not.
But that might be interesting as another option, right? Of like, I literally want to watch everything in the order in which it happened in time.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. It'd be like, movie marathon night, and you get a little confused, like, wait, why didn't that end credits? Oh, that's right, because that takes place way later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this movie, for me, I enjoyed it. Let me just start out by saying that I enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. I don't think it's top tier with like Avengers Infinity War or Captain America the Winter Soldier. But you know what? I looked up the runtime. It is 2 hours and 14 minutes. It does not feel like 2 hours and 14 minutes. It is very breezy to get through. There is maybe a little too much action. There's if you saw this in theater, which apparently there were $80 million US and or North America and $78 million international. I don't know when you went to go pee, but there was no time to pee.
Is that bums and seats, like people going to the theater?
Because Disney Plus alone, Premier Access, so it doesn't come. Yeah, 60 million US dollars just for Disney Plus. So people paying it was $30 for us. I don't know how much it is adjusted elsewhere, but those are people saying, I am 100% willing to watch this in the comfort of my own home. Well, this is the
thing. Harmy's referencing a link that I posted here as well as part of this story that the basically Black Widow basically kicked ass when it came to, we're all in pandemic, still in pandemic mode. The fact, like what was the last movie that came out? We kind of wondered if it was going to make back its money. There was another big release. The Tenet, right? Tenet was supposed to be in the theater, ended up being a home release. I think it was shown in some theaters, like in the States and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, Tenet was the unfortunate one that had some trouble. I think Cruella had maybe a multi-release.
It did,
right? And it did pretty good.
Where the hell are the dogs? Yeah, and the fact that the reported revenue from the weekend was just amazing, $158 million, right? For a movie that half of us couldn't see in IMAX or whatever, like we expected, right? It was amazing. Sorry,
and kudos for the Disney Plus Premier Access. So this is the first time I've paid for that, so I didn't know what the experience was going to be like. See, here was my tiny little story. I said, instead of doing Disney Plus, I'm going to go buy it on iTunes. Then I would own it forever. I thought it was so slick. Guess what? They thought about that.
Yeah, you don't.
You can't buy it on Amazon. You can't buy it on iTunes. I'm like, oh, wait, because this is not, mentally I was thinking this is like the Blu-ray or DVD equivalent release. No.
Can you not get like because this is the thing. Again, another thing I like about Disney Plus is that we can watch it anytime for the next 30 days or something like that. No,
right? Disney Plus is permanent.
Yeah. As long as you paid for it.
As long as you paid for it, as long as you maintain your Disney Plus account, you can watch it till the end of time.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of Wonder Woman too, because Wonder Woman
was only a timed thing. Yeah,
you could you paid for it. You had 48 hours to watch it as many times as you wanted, right?
Yeah. No, this I think is at least a little better in that if I choose to, I don't feel like I need. I'd like to watch it again and try and pick up some more of the nuance. Yeah. I'm glad that I didn't have to watch it the next day for that. I can watch it next week or next month if I choose.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And for the Premier Access stuff, they do make it, at least in the UI I saw on my iPad to pay for it. It straight up says you're buying this access through October, at which point it becomes free to everybody as part of Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So are you a Disney Plus subscriber now, or just for this show?
No, I have been Disney Plus for
for Loki and
for all the Marvel shows, and then the Star Wars shows, and
they got you, didn't they? They hooked you in.
Which Paramount Plus, when it was CBS All Access, got me in for like 6 months, I think, because they had show after show after show. That's a good problem to have, and I think it's a good strategy for these streaming services to have. You want my dollars every month? Give me something worth it every month. Well, and again, we've talked in the past about how, you know, the difference between the drop all your episodes at once and the spread them over the time. The spread them over the time starting to turn out to be a pretty good winner because it makes you keep your subscriptions longer. Yeah. The only other thing I would like to circle back on for the episode, again, great supporting cast. You know, Scarlett Johansson, obviously the star, Florence Pugh, Rachel Weisz, David Harbour. So they tipped for me the bad guy, the reveal. And again, spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched it. If you made it this far, you know, you're pretty good and spoiled now.
We'll do a spoiler warning, whatever.
But the thing that they did wrong is that they put the credits at the front of the movie, which not every movie does anymore. Only some movies do that. And in that, they put all the names. So I'm looking at the names. I'm like, okay, Scarlett Johansson, yeah. Florence Pugh, Rachel Weisz, okay. David Harbour, cool. Like, okay, good. They're going down the list. I'm like, oh, okay. Ray Winstone, okay. He's the bad guy. He's Dreykov, okay. William Hurt, of course. He's Thunderbolt Ross. He's coming back. And look at it. I was like, oh yeah. Oh, I forgot Olga Kurylenko is in this. She was famously a Bond girl of like 10 years ago. And I was like, oh, I like her, Olga Kurylenko. And so as the movie's going on and they're unveiling the plot and they're like, oh, what's going on? And I'm like, it's funny. They haven't brought her in as a character yet. Oh, and then they bring in this mysterious masked character as the sort of,
oh, is that her?
The villain. And they've got like the mask on and the scary looking and it's sort of Terminator-esque. And I'm like, And then they're going on and they're like, oh, they tell this little backstory about how, there was this mission that was the way that the Black Widow got free from working for the Red Room was that she helped take out Dreykov, and in that the collateral damage was his daughter, and now he blames her for.
But didn't they telegraph that to you, Jonathan? Because I mean, like,
they 100% did.
Because I mean, like, they kept bringing that daughter. Don't you feel bad about the daughter?
Yes.
And she's like weepy and tear welling up in the corner of her eye throughout the whole movie.
They totally did. They totally telegraphed that for me, and the fact that they hadn't shown anybody, like they hadn't shown Olga Kurylenko for the first like hour plus of the movie as like her face, which is a pretty recognizable one. Again, she was, she's a Bond girl. She's pretty famous. I immediately was like, okay, so clearly that's the daughter. Clearly that's behind there. Clearly she's going to be the one that they've turned into Taskmaster. And I like Taskmaster as a character. I'm an old enough comic fan that I have his first appearance. I read it all when I was, my
so
teens.
Taskmaster is an actual character?
Taskmaster is a character from the comics. And his ability in the comics, it's a male in the comic books. And I have no issue with gender swapping. That doesn't bother me in one way or the other. But the idea is that he has this ability to mimic anything he sees, he can do. So if he watches Hawkeye use a bow and arrow, he can do everything that Hawkeye can do with a bow and arrow. If he sees Captain America fighting with a shield, he can do everything that Captain America can do with a shield. I don't think they did a good job of explaining that. They basically throw it off as well. She can mimic everything that she sees or whatever.
She has a shield. Oh, look, she has a bow and arrow.
Yeah. So at one point you see Taskmaster watching videos of Hawkeye in the Civil War fight, right? You see Captain America there, you see Hawkeye there, and then you see her attacking Black Widow. And
I totally didn't get that, and I watched the movie. So you're right.
Yeah. So for me, I got that because I know the character, but then also I was looking, and then they're like, oh, but it's actually, she's like, she has this chip in her head and all this stuff. Okay. And the character in the comics is very, like, he is basically the supplier of hoods for villains. He is like so good at mastering all these different things. He basically builds armies for, like, if Dr. Doom needs an army, if you're a villain and you need henchmen, that you bring in this guy. He trains up a bunch of goons, shows them all these skills, and then sort of has them be your hench people. And he's a really interesting, very fully realized character. Here they basically turned her into like the Terminator. She doesn't really say anything. She's just this sort of non-stop attacking machine.
Sort of RoboCop kind of person. person.
Yeah, and again, I like that they did that thing where they sort of make her an empathetic character, and obviously she's not the villain, it's Dreykov, and whatever. But I kind of, while I enjoyed what they did, I also regret that that we're not going to ever see that version of Taskmaster in the MCU, just because I think he's a really interesting character, and I kind of regret that we're not going to see that version of it. And also, just again, I kind of put two and two together on the fact that Olga Kurylenko had to be that character, and it kind of spoiled how that was going to play out for me a little bit.
Yeah, the comic book characters, despite the name of Taskmaster, which is a person that does a harsh workload, managerial one, really more like a quartermaster that provides supplies and stuff, right?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Yeah.
So should we talk about that final scene?
Sure. Yeah, we're still in spoilerville.
So that final scene after the credits, we see. Okay, this is another nit I'm going to pick. I do have a few. So throughout this, we sort of get a sense of we've seen what happens after the snapping and the return, right? We've seen the Spider-Man Far From Home. We've seen WandaVision. We've seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We've seen what happens after Thanos, all the people, half the population of the universe dying and then coming back. We know what happens there. We know that there's a whole what happened to Captain America. We know there's all this stuff. So a couple things out of this one. One, Natasha Romanoff essentially sacrificed herself to save half the universe, and her grave is under a tree in the middle of effing nowhere. Wouldn't there be a statue, a massive acknowledgement of her in the downtown of some major city somewhere, because she would be a hero to the whole population of Earth? I found that a little disrespectful.
But she could have also been because she started out as a hired a trained killer, right? So she may have had a questionable past.
Oh, she certainly did. But I still think, saving billions upon billions, countless billions of lives by sacrificing yourself to get the Soul Stone probably corrects that ledger.
Yeah, they didn't show what was happening here. I had interpreted it a little bit differently. That even if there was the big Death of Superman style memorial statue somewhere, I don't believe there is a body. I don't think they've recovered a body from where the Soul Stone is. So presumably there's nothing in this grave either, and this might be the more private family one, right? So that
although
when you go and you
possible
have your
they could have gone
conversation,
back to Vormir and got her body. It's possible.
It's possible, but either way, I could see where there would be the if your family members or friends sort of thing, you don't want to have to go to
fight through the crowds,
the tourist attraction, attraction to have your heart to heart is we've got this other area that represents the.
But then we see Yelena there's a pile of flowers there. There's teddy bears and stuff like that. So it's kind of a mixed message. Anyway, I thought that was a bit incongruous, but I'll move past that to get to the real meat of this, which is we see Yelena show up. Yelena tidies up the grave. She kneels down. She kisses the side of the stone. And then we hear this familiar voice, and it's Val. It's Julia Louis-Dreyfus showing up as Val, the character we saw in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And she basically says, hey, how'd you like to know who was responsible for your sister's death? And shows her a picture of Clint Barton as Ronan in his sort of ninja costume, which is, of course, it's a setup for the Hawkeye TV show that's coming to Disney Plus. So the thought there, of course, is that she's going to be the sort of not necessarily bad guy, but the sort of the anti-hero of that series, where Clint Barton is going to be sort of the one of the heroes of that show, and they're sort of setting that up for you. So here's a question. How does Val know what happened on Vormir?
I wonder, if there's a newsletter or something, or
theoretically,
a social media conspiracy.
Someone's got to debrief the government, I guess, somewhere. And if she's got sources inside the government,
maybe she read it on Reddit. She saw something, r/Avengers.
That one really, again, sort of grabbed me. I was like,
Yeah, it's similar to from WandaVision when Agnes says to the Vision, "You're dead. Am I dead?" I'm like, how do people know that? That battle happened way out in Wakanda. Is there a, hey, you know what? Avengers are out there. We haven't seen Vision for a while. Is he dead? Let's just assume, Paul is dead sort of things. Don't know how literal it is versus, to your point there, there's top secret classified information that, given this character, what she does, you might have access to.
Yeah. But still,
that's the one thing in this movie you found unbelievable.
I think all in all, though, it was a good flick. I think I would watch it again. I think it's going to fit well into the canon. I agree. It's not in the upper echelon, but it's certainly solidly in the middle of the pack. And as far as, if this is the last time we're going to see Scarlett Johansson in this role, it's appropriate. I'm glad she finally got to be the lead character. I think Yelena's a fun character, and I think she could be, again, if the idea is that Scarlett Johansson played Black Widow for 10 years, and now for the next 10 years we're going to get Florence Pugh, who I think is a fine actress, I think I'm fine with all this. So I have a question then. You kind of left me hanging there. What is your favorite Avenger movie? Favorite Marvel movie?
Yeah, okay, Marvel movie, yeah.
Winter Soldier.
Okay.
I think it's the best. I think it's the best realized version of a movie. I think if you took Captain America's costume off, that is a great movie. I think it just works on so many levels. The problem,
the Robert Redford and all that stuff.
There's so much going on there. Like it's just a really like the loyalty versus the blind faith. The Winter Soldier conflict, which they'd set up from the previous movie, where he has to defeat this sort of guy, but he can't kill him because he loves him, and I just think it was really well realized. The best Marvel movies, in my estimation, are the ones that have the best villains. Loki is one of the best villains. The Winter Soldier is a great villain. For me, I mean, I really enjoy all of them in their own way. I think Ragnarok is pretty high up there too, for similar reasons, in that Hela is a great sort of scenery chewing villain, but again, completely different movies. But I think Winter Soldier is the best made movie of them all. As a spy thriller goes, it's really, really up there, and I love spy movies. I'm a huge 3 Days of the Condor and all those types of 1970s spy movies, and I thought it was just a great spy movie, and the performances are great, and the villain is great, and and it's just it sets the stage for so much that comes after that.
Right.
How about you guys? Let's throw it back at you. What do you guys think is your favorites?
I think my top two are Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and Avengers Infinity War. I'd probably give the nod to Captain America for being more self-contained, right? Like you could come in that movie and end on that movie, and you're going to be relatively pleased. It's like the Star Wars A New Hope of, Vader gets away at the end, but the main sort of task was accomplished. Yeah. Whereas Infinity War, just if you come in there, it's very confusing, and if you leave there, you're like, so they lost.
Yeah.
It's just like it's the Empire Strikes Back kind of thing of like, it's a good movie, but it's kind of hard to not lean on what came before and require you to see what comes after.
And it's hard not to think of that in its totality, right? Like it really is very much part of a whole.
It's funny for me because I don't think I saw the Winter Soldier in like full one sitting kind of thing. I saw it bits and pieces. For me, I think it's hard pressed to choose, but I think Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is probably a good movie for me. The one with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange is a good one. I think I like the first Iron Man movie. Who else is in there? Thor Ragnarok is a great movie.
We haven't even mentioned Black Panther, by the way, which is somewhat, we got to come on.
Yeah, Black Panther. Black Panther was interesting too, in a sort of Spider-Man-y kind of Superman-y kind of way, like just a different, like on its own, right? Yeah, and maybe we'll talk about we'll come back to the closing of the Avenger Endgame when we talk about Loki in a minute. Well, let's talk about Loki now, actually. So yeah, Loki was it's now that it's over. If you haven't seen all the episodes, I think we're just going to dive right in. So yes, this is a second spoiler part for you. A really interesting story the way it was told. I mean, not like definitely a fish out of water kind of scenario where he's pulled into this this world, not by his own choosing, right? I forget the very beginning of how he gets in there, but he's sort of captured and put into this thing, and then we have this TVA, and we have to sort of figure out the time police almost kind of thing, right? And they have all these interesting roles, and Owen North is pretty good, I think, as the character he plays.
Oh, Wilson, yeah.
Yeah, Mobius, right? Yeah. Owen Wilson, yeah. And what did I say, Owen North?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, the hockey player. He was in it too. No. And I really like the fact that the way that Tom Hiddleston plays Loki in this, because he doesn't play Loki, right? Loki's a trickster. He's always sort of playing the villain, and he's always out for his own self. I think it's sort of a character arc movie, I guess, is what you'd call this, Jonathan, where he learns about himself and his role in
his
society,
glorious purpose.
Yeah, so he discovers that there's more to life than what he's been up to, right? So, and plus, I think he's also coming out of. I don't think this is before Endgame, obviously, right? Or somehow before.
Yeah.
Endgame,
So even though this is the Loki we see leave with the Tesseract in Endgame, he is the Loki timeline wise from after the Battle of New York. So he hasn't had the events of Thor: The Dark World. He hasn't had the events of Thor: Ragnarok. He hasn't seen his mother die. He hasn't seen his mother die due to his behavior. Although he does in this, but like that's where we start with him. He's still the same schmuck who just got pancaked by the Hulk, 2 days before.
Right. And he gets to see his own death in this story. He gets to see his mother's death and now he gets to reflect on how that affects him, because I think and also the reveal part where I'd forgotten about this, where he he's got this sort of when he's in jail in the second Thor movie, where he's got he's living in this really nice elaborate cell, and it's not until he's talking to his brother that his brother sort of convinces him to reveal himself as being this depressed guy sitting in the corner, right?
Yep.
Who's putting on this illusion, right? So I mean, all around. I mean, and I like the sort of twists and turns in the story. Not wanting to give too much away, but the ending for me, like again, it's like he who shall remain, right? It's always that same guy, right? He who shall not be named. Like it's always the same.
Well, I can certainly shed some light on all that. They even refer
to him almost as the devil in a sense, right? Because he say you came here to kill the devil, right?
Yeah,
sort of thing. Yeah. So anyway, and there's going to be season 2, so I guess there's a chance for them to redeem themselves in my eyes.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on.
So the whole arc here is that we get a much more sort of narcissistic version of Loki than we're probably used to, having seen his character evolve before his death in Endgame. And then we get a similar trajectory of him realizing that he is not, in fact, the center of all things. And then, he discovers more about himself by actually strangely falling in love with himself, which is just a little weird. So we start with Loki. He takes the Tesseract. He appears. The TVA intervenes. They catch him. They take him there. And they basically say, we're going to put you on trial and we're going to vaporize you. Owen Wilson's character, Mobius, basically says, you know what? We can actually use his help in tracking down this other variant who's also a Loki from a different timeline. Let's not kill him yet.
But we don't know it's a Loki at first.
Well, not in the first episode, but we quickly get that anyways. So, or I guess it's the end of the first episode that we find out that it's the other Loki. So then the story is basically like, well, who is this other Loki? And then it basically turns out that the two of them end up allying, the two Lokis. The other Loki doesn't want to be called Loki. She wants to be called Sylvie. And so it's about Sylvie and Loki, who are two sides of the same person, obviously one male and one female, but basically the same person with different life experiences and different perspectives on things. And they go on this adventure together where they, are sort of each growing in different ways. She's trying to figure out whether or not she can learn to trust. He's trying to figure out whether or not he could stop being an ass. And, over the course of the series, they sort of, unravel the fact that the TVA is all just a myth. It doesn't really exist in the way they think it does, that there's actually a sort of a hand behind the whole thing that isn't, in fact, the timekeepers that they thought were the ones behind it. And in the end, as you say, we basically come around to this point where they finally, they reach the castle at the end of the maze. They get there, and
it's Ron Howard's little brother.
Well, that's basically it. So in the end, they get to the end of this journey, and there we see Jonathan Majors. We mentioned earlier in the episode, nominated for an Emmy for Lovecraft Country. And he is revealing himself as this sort of, I'm not the bad guy. You just think I'm the bad guy. And if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And then it comes down to Loki versus Loki.
Use the fork.
Yeah. It's Loki versus Loki for, she blames this person, he who remains, for basically kidnapping her as a child and taking her away from, making her live her life on the run and scared and everything else. And then we also have our Loki, who now has grown to the point where he thinks, I think maybe this guy's telling the truth, and I don't think we should take this risk. And so we have this Loki versus Loki fight. In the end, Sylvie Loki wins, and she runs through He Who Remains. And then we see all hell break loose, and the timelines are skewing all over the place. And our Loki gets transported back to the TVA, where we realize that the timeline has been reset. The what do they call it? The holy timeline? The
sacred timeline?
The sacred timeline, that's right. The sacred timeline that they were working to protect through the whole thing has been reset, because in place of the timekeepers at the center of this TVA, we see just He Who Remains as the lone person who is in control of it, and they have no recollection of any of the events that Loki does. So this spins into a couple of different ways we can look at this. So one, yes, they also reveal at the end of this episode and the end of this series that we're going to get a season 2. 2, they use the word multiverse about 48 times in the final episode, which happens to be part of the title of the next Doctor Strange movie, The Multiverse of Madness, Into the Multiverse of Madness, which also ties into the WandaVision storyline that we talked about, where, they mentioned the multiverse there a couple of times as well. And also, it falls beautifully into, we see the branching timelines. We see all the different timelines skewing off of the sacred timeline to show all these different possibilities. What if? So this sets the stage for the next Marvel TV series that we're going to get, which is What If, where what if Captain America had died in the 1940s and, Peggy Carter had to pick up the mantle and become Captain Britain or whatever she is, Captain England or whoever she is, in the trailer that we see. So we've set the stage for movies to come. We've set the stage for a new TV series to come. And we've kind of set the stage for the next big bad for the Marvel Universe. While in here, we only ever have him referred to as He Who Remains. Anybody who's a comic fan knows that this is Kang the Conqueror, who is as old as the Avengers. He appeared in the 1963 issue, I think it's issue 8 or 9 of the Avengers. And he is this time-spanning warlord who has all these incarnations across time and is now going to be this major thorn in the side. How that lines up with the storyline and all the grounded universe stuff with, Val and all that other stuff, I have not figured out yet. Perhaps that's yet to be revealed, but we've now set the stage for Phase 4 of the Marvel Universe, which is a pretty bold thing to do in a television series.
So this doesn't tie back into Endgame when Loki appears and saves the day? Doesn't, where the rings show up and all the people who have been blipped come back?
No, he has nothing to do with that. That's okay. Doctor Strange with the things and them all showing up. Loki dies ostensibly, although we can have that discussion too. So in the penultimate episode, we go to this sort of place at the end of time where all the pruned Lokis, all these Lokis are all living, who've all been taken out of the timeline, and we meet,
including one as an alligator,
including Gator Loki. We meet a young Loki. We meet all these different versions, including a very old Loki played by Richard Grant, and he says, I was in the moment in the ship with Thor and Thanos, and I created a facsimile of myself so realistic that it even fooled the Mad Titan to think that he had killed me, and then I went off and lived on my own. So they've really written a way that they could bring back our Loki if they so chose, by saying that he faked his own death in that moment.
Yeah, with Loki as a character, even before this show, it was always a "is he really dead" sort of thing that they've
Well, and
played
he
with.
died in what's the black what the hell was that terrible one?
The
If you want to know
Dark World?
my least favorite Marvel movie, that would be that one too. The Dark World, Thor: The Dark World. Not a great film.
Yeah. So it's, for me, it was interesting to look at this from the perspective of what is the theme of the show. So for folks who've seen the other shows, I'm going to do them in release order. So WandaVision, we said that was about grief, right? That was the theme, grief and loss. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was really about legacy. The three different characters, one who doesn't want to take the legacy, one who absolutely wants it, and one who's trying to get past their legacy. This one, I feel like it was pretty much on the free will theme. So, are you destined to do certain things? Does somebody else have the free will and you don't have the free will? I thought those were all interesting ideas for this show.
No, agreed. The question is, in the grand scheme of things, where did we land on that one?
On this show? Like it or not
on
like it,
free will versus destiny.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, I'm gonna start calling him Kang because I can't be bothered. The man has had many names. He's Kang, he's Immortus, he's Ramatut, he's all these different things across all these different comic storylines. Anyways, Kang, for lack of a better term, basically says, I have done all this. You guys didn't have, he said, you guys walked the path, I paved the path.
So why did he have that one threshold moment where he says, we've come to the point where I don't know what's going to happen?
Because his whole point was getting them to that point, and then it was up to them to take that next step, right?
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I kind of like that. I mean, they kind of played that out in the very, very first court scene where he's there and he's, I forget what he says. Like, he says, what happens now? And the guy prints out it on a piece of paper and puts it down in front of him, and it says, what happens now on the output, right?
Making him sign the bureaucratic form of, can you verify this is everything you've ever said? It's like, what?
Right.
And then another thing. This is ridiculous or whatever.
But then they talk about, they run that same line again when he first meets Kang in the end, right? Because he says, I know exactly what you're going to say. Like, without doing the sort of trope thing they could have done where they repeat everything at the same time kind of thing. Like,
well, he says, how is it possible that I can avoid everything you're planning to do and I know what you're going to do before you do it? He's like, I do. I know exactly what you're going to do, so I can just get out of the way.
Yeah, just move it out of the way, yeah. I mean, I like the timey-wimey stuff, and I like the fact that, I mean, the reveal at the end that it was all just a hoax, right? And that like even the part where I forget what they call those, the agents or whatever, the
Minutemen,
the black Minutemen. She takes the one Minuteman back to meet where they meet the first time they meet the school teacher who turns out to be the big boss.
Yeah, Ravonna,
right?
yeah.
And Ravonna, like, she doesn't even, like, she walks into the room and she doesn't even know who so, and that's another, again, this is the sort of the one part about, sleeping on the porch and Back to the Future 2 is how come they don't know that they're variants, right? How come they don't remember? I mean, Loki remembers his life before he became a variant.
Yeah, why do some people have the knowledge and some people don't?
I mean, and Sylvie didn't because she was obviously a child when they brought her in. And again, it's kind of like, they brought her in when she was a child, and that's what ruined her life, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because they talk about, in that episode where they have all the Lokis, they're like, well, what was your transgression that the TVA felt they needed to take you out of the timeline? And, the Richard Grant character says, well, yeah, I got taken out of the timeline because they were fine with me living on my own for millennia here, but then I missed my brother and I wanted to go see him. And as soon as I did that, they pruned me. And Kid Loki says, well, I killed Thor. And so obviously, that's not going to abide. They had to destroy his timeline. The question I had through this whole thing, and I've seen it raised on a few different, sites and podcasts and Reddit and places like that, was what did Sylvie do? What did she do that needed to be pruned right then and there? And the only thing that I can come up with, and a prevailing theory that I've seen online, is that she didn't want to be the villain because she's playing with her toys and she says, and Loki saves the day.
Oh, yeah?
And maybe
Yeah.
they're so megalomaniacal in that way that they're like, Loki can't be the hero. Loki has to be the bad guy. So they prune her.
Yeah, depending on how you end up looking at it. So I think for the young kid one, if you assume that what Thanos does has to occur in the sacred timeline, then you need Thor to be there, which means he can't be dead.
Yep.
So you prune little kid Loki. Old man Loki, presumably Loki needs to be considered villain, except for his heroic sacrifice to in front of Thanos. So him coming back might cause issues. It's a little less clear. I do agree with the Sylvie idea that, given she seemed to be playing with like toy Valkyries, like if Loki becomes a hero, then Loki doesn't move all the puzzle pieces into the right place as the villain.
Yep.
And Thanos maybe does something to become perfectly winning, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to what Doctor Strange told us, that out of the 14 million some variations that he saw, there was only one way that they ended up winning. So maybe it had to go that way.
Yeah. I will say now that we've seen 3 different series, and I've enjoyed them all in different ways, and obviously different performances. And you're right, Jaime. I think you really nailed it with, there are themes that sort of run through these that are really, when you look at this whole thing through those lenses, it really becomes clear. I think Loki was my favorite so far. It was, I know for some of the people that I've spoken with and some of the things that I've read, some people found it a little confusing because it is timey-wimey and, and there's certainly a lot of stuff to chew on. But as a longtime Marvel fan, and as well as somebody who really just likes, the character studies and stuff like that, I thought this really kind of brought it all together. There was just packed with Easter eggs. Tom Hiddleston's performance was amazing. As was everybody. I mean, I don't think I'd ever seen anything with Sophia DiMartino before, but I thought she was really good. The chemistry between her and Hiddleston was great. The chemistry between Owen Wilson as Mobius and Tom Hiddleston was great. Gugu Mbatha-Raw was amazing as Ravonna. She, you really couldn't get, she was just so impenetrable. It was great. Wunmi Musaku, who played Hunter B-15, she's the black agent who is who ends up getting sort of seeing the light. She was terrific. Even Tara Strong being Ms. Minutes, there's a lot of good little things there. And then again, all these little moments, we got, young Loki and Richard Grant and, all these little moments. And Jonathan Majors, again, he was really going for it. He was almost Loki-esque as Kang, the sort of the whimsy, I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm really excited about it and I might get killed and this is so great. I really enjoyed that. I think there was a lot to enjoy in this.
I liked all the retro vibe too, like the electric typewriters and the old computers.
Oh, the aesthetic was beautiful. And one thing I definitely wanted to call out, I thought the music for this was incredible. When they're having some of those epic fights, the horns and just a perfect, when they're in the TVA and the music's got this sort of, retro vibe to it. And then they go into these grand fights and it has the part where they're on the planet that's about to be destroyed and the sort of epic music around that.
Yeah.
And then the penultimate episode where they're fighting against the smoke monster from Lost. I thought there was just a real feeling to the music. I thought it was really, really, really well done in this series.
Yeah, and it's got a good theme song or intro theme song that is very Twilight Zone or X-Files-esque, kind of something freaky is going to happen sort of thing.
Yeah. So I am curious, Jaime, I know you're a comic reader and Tim much less so. Was this impenetrable or was this enjoyable?
I got everything that was going on because I know enough of the comics. So I think, and I've watched every single Marvel movie. So for me, it was pretty easy. This is not one that I would share with my significant other who is more of a casual, mainstream, normal person, right? Falcon and the Winter Soldier is easier to explain.
Oh, yeah.
I think this and WandaVision are big no-nos to have with her because she's just not going to get it because it requires you to know a lot of the backstory.
So before we get Tim's thought on this, I'm curious, Jaime, because this does so much to establish what's going to happen next in the MCU, is it going to be a deterrent going forward for some of the stuff that you and your partner might watch?
No, I don't think so, because I think they've done a really good job with Marvel's cinematic universe for the films to give you enough context in the movie. Like, yes, it is always better if you saw the other movies, you saw the other things, but they treat it as supplemental and not strictly necessary. Like, I think Thanos is a pretty good example where I think most mainstream folks got a pretty good idea of like, oh, he's the big bad guy, he's collecting these magic widgets, right? That was sufficient. Yeah, that was sufficient for them, whereas fans would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's been teased for so long. Oh, they showed the Infinity Gauntlet, I'm going to do it myself. Like, it was better if you saw and knew and remembered all those things, but not strictly necessary. So I think here with Kang, like, did you have to see this guy? No, you just need to know, oh, this is a guy who's time jumping, conquering guy. Got it. Good. And then I think they can move on from there.
Yeah. What about you, Tim?
I mean, I really enjoyed it, the whole series, because I always like timey-wimey, sort of twisty, multiversey kind of shows anyway. And plus, like I said, the retro vibe and the aesthetic. And
the retro vibe really evoked Doctor Who for me. I don't know about for you.
Yeah, speaking of which, but I did want to mention at one point here, I went back and started watching Doctor Who on Crave. It's on Bell for free, right? So I started watching the Christopher Eccleston, with Billy Piper, and they're not as bad as I remember. I mean, they're still hokey in terms of special effects, but then Doctor Who's always been sort of a bit hokey on the special effects. But so because I realized in talking to you guys and talking to Tammy that I think I might have missed a whole bunch of David Tennant and maybe some Matt Smith Doctor Who's because of the way they were shown on I don't know if they were on Space at first or whatever, but there may have been some episodes I missed, right? Because it wasn't, we didn't have PVRs back then and all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm going back through them a little bit of times. I mean, some of them are pretty bad, but anyway, but yeah, I really did enjoy this show. It had that sort of 70s sort of vibe to it. I remember I started wondering what happened to our select set typewriter and some of the older computers. I've seen a lot of the stuff they used in there, and I like the way they played them around. I like the little character, the little timekeeper character,
Ms. Minutes,
Ms. Minutes, and who plays that actually?
It's Tara Strong. She's a very prominent voice actress. She's done tons of things, Harley Quinn, all kinds of different characters
Bubbles,
over the years.
I think.
Pardon me?
Was she Bubbles, Tara Strong?
Yes, absolutely. From Powerpuff Girls.
Girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I really liked the character, and it was funny the way they animated her too. So it looked like she was actually in 3D space.
Yeah. And I love that she was sort of part of the conspiracy. Like, it wasn't just sort of some little. Yeah. I love that they twisted that. That was amazing.
Well, there was even that little sort of bomb that she drops on I forgot the administrator lady.
Ravonna Renslayer,
yeah. When she comes back and she sort of says, "What were you looking up?" She goes, "Oh, no, never mind. Don't worry about it." Kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of an interesting twist of fate.
And I'm just going to put this out there: Tara Strong is from Toronto.
Okay. Canada's own.
She's been in America for a long time, but yes, she's Canadian.
All right. Yeah. Well, it's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
So Tim, I think another thing that you mentioned the timey-wimey thing that had you watching Doctor Who. For me, what Sophia DiMartino's sort of general look and accent made me think a lot of Jodie Whittaker. I was like, I could see this lady as another Doctor Who as well.
They're going to turn completely left with the next Doctor. Like it's going to be like you're going to be like, who? Really? Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, they never. It's. I mean, it's a big secrety thing. It's kind of like who's playing the next Queen in the Crown kind of thing. In terms of a well kept secret. Although that's not a well kept secret now. But no, it's going to be an interesting. There's always a big sort of question. It's like it's almost as controversial as who's going to be next Bond kind of thing, right? But whoever Doctor who's going to be the next Doctor is going to be an interesting story, right? Oh, cool. Let's talk about Rick and Morty before we wrap up here, because we're only 4 episodes in. I don't know if have you guys seen all 4? I mean, yep. I was going to say this season's been a little bit so until the last episode.
Oh my God, the last episode.
The first 5 minutes of the last episode, and it was like they didn't even mention what is really going on, and then it's like the whole episode is like Morty trying to hide what he did in the first You know, like just the subtle way he sort of says, "Oh, I hate your work, Mom." But what's this thing do? And she says, "Oh, it's for doing that thing." And Morty goes, "Oh, really?" You just see the little
the wheels turning,
the wheel, and then through the whole episode, like they're matter-of-factorily talking about the fact this is all based on equine DNA, and he's like, maybe not. Especially when Rick shows up with a big bucket of it.
I've got this bucket of horse semen from your mom's work. I'm just going to test it and make sure it's actually horse semen. No, why do you have to do that?
Do that, yeah. Have you seen it, Javi?
I have.
Yeah.
I ended up liking all the episodes so far. Maybe a lot of folks may not have liked the Planetina, the Captain Planet character. Maybe I grew up watching that show enough that
that was funny. I like that.
Girl, yeah.
I like that episode.
Yeah.
The very first one was a bit the weird guy in the seashell thing.
The Mr. Nimbus. Yeah.
I don't know if I saw Mortiplicity either. That's the second one, right?
Yeah, Mortiplicity was the one where the
decoy families.
The decoy families, and that was very meta.
Oh, yeah, that was really good. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah. Again, timey-wimey, right?
I've seen people like up and down on some of the on Reddit and a few different places where some people are like, oh, they're really pushing the envelope, and some people are like, oh, I don't like it.
It's not as good. Like the last season was really good,
Yeah, but I feel like you're right. The first three, I think they're really good episodes. I enjoyed them. I laughed. They were fine. This last one, like I was just blown away at how far they took the joke. Like they just kept doubling down, and just to have the episode end with like a giant space incest baby, like it's just so far beyond where you think comedy can be pushed. Like I have nothing but I tip my hat. It's just so far gone into crazy. It's so awesome.
So the funny thing too is that on Adult Swim here in Canada, they bleep all the swears.
They do.
Whereas if you buy it on iTunes, you hear them.
Yeah.
And I almost prefer the bleeps,
Yeah, well, yeah.
So, I mean, when you watch it, are they bleeping out all the curse words, or
they are on Adult Swim in the USA?
Okay.
I've not ever seen the iTunes versions, but I could see how it might be funnier in some respects to have the bleeps.
Yeah,
because
I mean, you can, the bleeps are not. I mean, sometimes the bleeps are like, you have to really sort of. It's not a stretch for you to imagine what the word is, right? Is what I'm saying, right? But there was a couple of times in this last episode where there were like 3 or 4, like an interchange between 2 people, and it was like bleep 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 bleep, but you could still figure out what they were saying,
Yeah.
Ass bleep,
Yeah. But this one, I mean, again, they just pushing it so far to like
it was a visual. The whole thing was a visual joke, and they didn't have to say it at all.
No. And the sperm monster's headed for the Grand Canyon, because it's the deepest place on Earth. Oh my God,
the widest place.
And then again, the final sort of fight scene where it's like Rick and Morty, the U.S. military, people from the Vegas Strip, and the Chuds from the Horse People, all fighting back against the sperms. Like, oh my God, it was just so over the top. I'm just blown away that they can push something that far.
The little sperm with the mutant tail that he befriends, almost like my little, what's the dragon one with Jay Baruchel?
Oh yeah, what's it? What's that called?
Toothless
the dragon. Yeah.
With the broken tail that he fixes.
Yeah. There's a couple different layers of things that they might have been referencing with that. I also got vibes of the baby Metroid from Metroid 2 Return of Samus, on that, where what should hypothetically be an enemy is actually kind of a cuter version that helps you. In this case, he ends up not helping. I also thought that when Morty was going to get attacked and then they realized, oh, he's the progenitor, we can't kill him, felt very Alien 3-esque when the alien is going to attack Ripley and realizes, oh, she has the queen, we can't kill her, right? I felt like there was a couple different of references there for that.
Yeah, great show.
there's no such thing as a bad episode of Rick and Morty. They're all really good. It's just a matter of degrees. But I really feel like that over time we'll look at this last one as a high water mark. It really is something just bat crap crazy.
Well, it's because, I mean, again, it's that whole super intelligent, you don't have to say it approach, right? You don't have to say it.
Yeah.
In fact, we said too much.
Show don't tell.
I also think the callbacks are going to be interesting. So the one you guys didn't mention was the first one where they take that sort of Star Trek-esque, like, what if time runs faster in a different dimension thing, where
Morty keeps going back and they keep...
So I dug the concept, maybe more than y'all, but the thing I want to watch for is they may be able to dramatically change the Jessica character, because she went through eons and eons of time in a very short amount of time.
Right.
So they might come back and mention something through that.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, that was funny. I forgot about that little guy. Yeah, that was good. That was a good storyline for sure. All right, let's bang through our watch list because we've been going for quite a while here. I got a couple of quick hits. One is Love, Death, and Robots Season 2 just came out. Good episodes. I mean, nothing really sort of stands out as much watches. I think they're pretty all solid in terms of last season was good. This season's good as well. Kevin Can F Himself is you may not think it's a sci-fi movie, but it's got that. I mentioned it earlier when I was trying to explain it to Mark and Jaime. I mean, it takes place in Worcester, Massachusetts, which we have a huge argument about pronunciation of, because it's Worcestershire and Worcester, or like how you pronounce that word is a big debate, right? And it's pronounced a different way. Mark is convinced because he's from Massachusetts that it's Worcester. But anyway, Annie, what's her last name?
Annie Murphy.
Annie Murphy from Schitt's Creek is the main character in it, and it starts out as a comedy, like a sitcom, like with the whole laugh track and the goofy husband and his hilarious antics with his friends, and she's the hapless wife who, as soon as she's in a scene by herself, the whole tone of the show changes. The first time it happened, I'm like, what is going on here? But the whole tone of the show changes, and you're now in her head, and it's got a sort of WandaVision, this is reality, this is the fake universe kind of vibe to it. So that's why I'm kind of including it here as a kind of a really interesting sort of sci-fi kind of thing to it, right? Story to it. It's kind of Breaking Bad meets any sitcom you name kind of thing, right? Plus a bit of WandaVision, where is this going kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
So I recommend it. Anyway, have you guys seen any episodes?
I haven't watched it yet. It's definitely on my to-do list. I know we've been talking about it on our Slack, and I like Annie Murphy a lot. I actually was a latecomer to Schitt's Creek. It's something that my wife and I have been catching up on and really, really loving, and her performance has been one of the highlights for sure. And so that's definitely got on my radar for something to get into.
Jerry Ciccariti is a good friend of my sister's and a friend of mine, a guy I went to university with. He directs most of the Schitt's Creek episodes.
Nice.
Yeah. What do you got for us?
I got a couple things. So a couple trailers I dropped, and one thing that actually is now alive. I put it in here a few weeks back when I didn't know when we were going to record next. Gunpowder Milkshake is now available on Netflix, and that is sort of an action movie, female centric. Karen Gillan from Doctor Who, famously the Matt Smith run, is the star, along with Lena Headey from Game of Thrones. And Carla Gugino. It looks really, really, again, it's a shoot 'em up. It's one of those movies that Jaime and I talk about, the sort of, grab a bag of popcorn and just, dig in. Lots of things are going to blow up. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, it doesn't look like it's hard. I really enjoy Karen Gillan as a performer. I think she's really charming. And it just looks like it's going to be a nice, fun sort of shoot 'em up, a little bit lighter touch than a John Wick, just a little more sort of, humorous. So yeah, I'm definitely going to get into that probably this weekend. I'm looking forward to that one. Trailer was dropped for Last Night in Soho. Last Night in Soho is the next movie from Edgar Wright, who I know, Tim, you were a big fan of. I am as well. Jaime, I don't know if you're a Shaun of the Dead guy too.
Oh, yes.
And, of course, this will be his first sort of major project since Baby Driver. So I think this could be really interesting, and it stars Tom Thomasin McKenzie and Anna Taylor-Joy as these sort of two characters that, you know, it's hard to say from the trailer exactly what's happening. It looks like it's basically about this woman who is transported in time, more or less, as well as a body. So it's the Thomasin character transporting into the body of the Anya Taylor-Joy character in the 1960s. So she lives in the now, and then she's transported back in time into this other body. And then when she's there, it seems like there's sort of a murder mystery kind of thing that's happening, and it sort of starts to get darker, and it's sort of like a thriller. I'm not going to say horror, but maybe thriller kind of thing going on there. The trailer is really interesting. Like it looks beautiful. Again, I really like Edgar Wright as a filmmaker. I really loved, I must say, I had seen Anya Taylor-Joy in a few different things, including the M. Night Shyamalan movies that she was in, the last couple of his movies. But I, like so many other people, I fell in love with her with The Queen's Gambit. She was just transcendent in that, and so she's definitely been on my radar for what's she going to do next. So I was in there, and I'm in. Matt Smith is also in this movie, and the fact that it's done by Edgar, I think it's just going to be a win across the board. So
I have to say though, wasn't Edgar Wright involved in the making of the Sparks Brother movies? Yeah, he's a director. So there is a movie between that he did a documentary on the Sparks.
That's right. Yeah.
Sparks.
Okay. So this is the first non-fiction movie.
Non-true
You pedantic bastard. Yes, you're right. He did the Sparks Brothers movie. So this will be the first original original fiction film that he's done since Baby Driver. Yeah. And again, he takes his time. He takes, usually a good, 3 or 4 years between his movies. So there's something to anticipate and something to look forward to. Again, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim, World's End, Baby Driver. I think anytime this guy puts out a movie, I'm going to be in for it. And the fact that he's got this hot star in it, I think is going to raise the profile of it. And I think, he's really starting to become a name that you just want to see his movies. And not only do you want to see them, but in the theater.
I went and saw him speak before a movie, a screening of Shaun of the Dead a few years ago. He had an Edgar Wright Film Festival thing going on. Yep. It was really cool. Did you ever watch Spaced?
Oh, yeah. I loved Spaced.
Okay.
Spaced was great. Yeah. Not to be missed and not to be slept on. I think it's on Amazon Prime. If everybody's looking for a fun watch, it's only, 10 episodes?
What is it? Is the whole series on or just the series one?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because you'll find out where all the characters all the actors who came into Shaun of the Dead came from. Yep. If you watch Spaced.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not a sci-fi movie.
No, it's very much. It's like it's about slackers in England.
It's like Friends. It's like Spaced is a reference to sharing a flat kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Right. But yeah, with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, of course, are the two stars, along with Jessica Stevenson. It's and so many of the other supporting characters are there as well. But 14 episodes, 2 seasons, so it's definitely worth a watch. Very, very funny, very, very relatable, especially for those of us that lived through the 90s.
Yeah.
I've got a Pixar movie, so Luca, which is included with your Disney Plus subscription, which I've written in the notes here. It feels like a mix of The Little Mermaid, Ranma 1/2, and a Miyazaki film. So The Little Mermaid, I think, is a little bit more obvious because it's about fish people who want to see what it's like on land and have dreams about that. The Ranma 1/2, so this is an anime and manga series from like the 80s where the premise was that the main character would switch from a boy to a girl when dunked in water, cold water or hot water, I forget which direction it goes, but it's kind of like this where being in the water, they're the sea monsters, and when they come out of the water, they're humans. So that aspect, and it feels like a Miyazaki film because this movie is pretty low key. It doesn't have like huge stakes. It feels like a very comfortable sort of quieter sort of movie. So it feels more like a My Neighbor Totoro, or maybe even like Spirited Away. That's kind of more experiential than it is like we got to go punch this thing, right? So it's a very different. I recommend folks take a look at that.
Cool.
And I also finished up Mythic Quest Season 2, which I wrote in question marks here. Is this the series finale, or is this just a season finale? I don't know. I think I could be satisfied either way for another season, or if this is the send-off, I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah, I gotta say that the author one was probably the best episode of the whole series. The one about the head writer guy.
Yeah, C.W. Longbottom. That was this season's equivalent of last season's segue into the past, where they showed the other video game company, the married couple, that ties into it. It's so weird because they do that, right, where they segue into this other story, and like, what does it have to do? Is like, oh, it ties into maybe some of the main plot lines or part of the theme for the season.
So I haven't watched Mythic Quest yet, and I know a few people who have advocated for it. So what's the elevator pitch? Why should I watch Mythic Quest?
If you like Silicon Valley or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I think you'll like this as well, because it's about being in the office, in this case in a tech company that's a game company, but it's got that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia kind of approach to it, just a little bit less cynical in general.
Yeah. Some of the characters are really good in it. Like the Indian guy from Community's in it. He's got a really good character. And there's it's sort of an office story, but it's about this really successful video game that they've made, and the trials and tribulations between the owner creator whose name is Ian, but he calls himself Ian, and the head writer kind of thing. And then there's all either character, the head engineer, I should say. She's got the team in the basement. And if you know anything about how games are created, it's got a bit of a vibe like what was that? Like Halt and Catch Fire in a sense, right? But it's interesting. It is a bit tiring at some points, but it's generally it's one of the better shows on Apple TV. But it's not Ted Lasso for sure, but it's definitely pretty good. Yeah, and like there's this the episode where Ben Sisko gets thrown into a universe where he's a writer. Yeah, it's the episode where they go back in time, and the head writer is what's his name again?
C.W. Longbottom. No, I mean, but the actual actor. Abrams, right? F. Murray Abraham. F. Murray Abraham. F. Murray Abraham. Yeah, he plays the head writer, and it's funny because it was also filmed during. I mean, the first season was not filmed during COVID, but the second season was, and in fact, they even do a COVID episode where they're all working from home. And I wonder, because for the first of this second season, for the first 5 episodes, he only appeared on a computer monitor. So I kind of wonder if he didn't want to come in. We'll have to go back and read through the IMDb notes when they get published, but it's almost like he didn't want to be in the studio with the young actors, kind of thing, right? But anyway, they have this one story arc where they go back into his life as a science fiction writer, and how he writes this great novel and has a romance with there's a couple of other writers they have a sort of triangle with, and it's a really good story. Like that by itself could be a whole episode. Right? And the guy who plays Big Head on Silicon Valley plays him as a young man. Right? Yeah, it's really good.
Right.
Definitely worth a watch. I mean, it's kind of like parts of it are like a car accident. You just got to watch it to see what happens.
Well, that's what Silicon Valley and Always Sunny are like too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because it's the creator is the same dude. I think one of the creators of Always Sunny, or one of the actors from it anyway, right? Yeah. And then John, you got one more thing to close us out?
Yeah, and I of course I think we're all on board for this one as our number one watch list item, which is Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2. The release date is August 12th, 2021. So we're a scant few weeks away from the return of Star Trek to our lives. And given that we know that Prodigy is coming and Discovery is coming and Picard is coming, I think we're going to have lots of Trek to talk about in the next little while. So they did put up a little trailer. It's just a little teaser. It's like 20 seconds of an episode. Doesn't really tell you much other than to sort of get wet your whistle a little bit and to promote the date. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited that we're finally going to get more Trek, and I really enjoyed that first season. I'm curious to see where they take those characters, particularly because we did kind of end on a little, not necessarily a cliffhanger, but a twist.
Yep. I think we predicted where that was going to go, though, right?
He's going to get fired really fast.
Yeah. Alrighty. Anyway, that wraps up another episode of Spockcast. So, hey, Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, where do they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
And Jonathan, people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram as @JPK News.
And your other podcast?
Well, and if you really like healthcare, you can listen to the Canadian Health Information Podcast or The Chip, or wherever you get your podcasts. I highly recommend it. I'm a producer on the show, and very, very proud to do that as part of my day job.
All right. And my name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA. I also do a little podcast called More Than Just Code with Jaime Lopez Jr. and Mark Rubin. And I do another one with Tammy called Hero's Journey, where we talk to authors of the Pragmatic Publishers. And I may be starting another podcast on my own soon.
Teaser.
Yes, teaser. I'll put that out there. Anyway, till next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
No, I think I forgot to say I'm Tim Mitra on TIMMITRA on the Twitter machine. Did I say that?
Perhaps not. You were busy listing off your podcast bona fides.
Right, yeah.
You might as well say it now so you can loop it in.
Yeah, well, I just said it, so bye.
It's going to sound so different. It's going to be like, and I'm Tim Mitra, TMJT.
People know when to skip ahead, like, and avoid the whole spiel about, supporting us and writing reviews and all that kind of stuff. They just, if I do everything the same every single time, like I've heard people who listen to our show on a regular basis, and thank you for listening to our show on a regular basis, they skip past the parts when they start to hear me go into the end, and now, kind of roll, right?
Yeah, they just jump right to the after show?
Yeah, which is what this is. I haven't said goodbye. Now the music is going to go, there's music.
You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Before
to
show.
The after show.
Is it the after show or the before show? I don't know. It's kind of like timey-wimey.
You never know what we'll do here.
Right.
So, Jaime, how excited are you for the expansion draft for the Seattle Kraken? Are you looking up all the players? You're investing? Have you got a jersey ordered yet?
I haven't done either of those things because I don't know enough about hockey. I mean, I'll be excited when I see what the analysts say because I sort of need people who know what they're talking about.
You didn't watch the playoffs?
I saw what did I see? I did see Stanley Cup. What game was it? Boy, it might have been Game 3, but I'm not sure. No, it was Game 4 because they were down 3-0, weren't they?
Can we talk about the fact that they're going to be playing their home games at something called Climate Pledge Arena?
What?
It's a goofy one. That's for sure.
That's a goofy one. That's a new one. It's not quite the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans, but it's pretty up there.
Oh, look at that! Black Widow's playing tonight, and it's already sold out at 12:30.
Madness.
No, 12:30 p.m. What?
Oh, it's starting tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah. Sorry, I just happened to see an email from Cineplex and thinking, do we want to go see Quiet Place 2 in theater?
That's already on Amazon Prime.
Is it?
Yeah. I looked the other day. I was like,
Quiet Place 2.
Yeah. I looked the other day because I saw a commercial for Quiet Place 2 and I was like, Quiet Place 2. Okay, well, that'll probably be a few more months before it comes out onto some streaming service. And then I looked on Amazon Prime and it's available now. I was like, great.
Yeah, there's like
one less thing to do in the theater.
I want to see it Cineplex.
So for us, it looks like the options on Amazon are buy for $19.99 or watch with your Paramount Plus 7-day free trial, which I guess since I'm not logged in, they don't know that would apply to me. But is it just straight up part of Prime for y'all?
Let me just click on it. It says, it literally just says play movie.
So the reason I wanted to check this out
included
is
with Prime. It says right here, included with Prime.
Oh, there you go. Tip your hat to the folks who did the rights negotiations in Canada.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at the Cineplex at Yonge and Dundas, and I just wanted to see, for instance, like what are they doing for like 12:30 show in the VIP, which is like the one where you get to sit next to your like they have the sort of couple seats, right? They're selling one set of seats per row.
Oh, that's very sporadic.
Yeah, that's it's like there's like two people sitting, and then there's like 4 empty seats beside them.
Yeah.
And then the next row, it's the people on the aisle, and then 5 empty seats, and then the next row E, it's like two seats.
Well, I know there was a huge issue with them. Like they were very frustrated with the government rules, the provincial government rules about capacity, because they're only allowed a certain amount. It's not capacity per theater; it's capacity per building, and so for them, they're really quite limited. I think it's only like 25% or something like that, or 20% capacity.
So I'm looking at one of the larger theaters, like the APX or whatever it's called. So it's like 2 seats and then 4 empty seats, and then 2 seats and then 4 empty seats per row, and then that way there's like so the people in the front row in front of you are sitting across from the 4 empty seats, right?
Yeah.
So they're getting their 6-foot distance, whatever. Although I'd argue this is not 6 feet.
Well, I know you're on an angle too.
I'm going to take my hockey stick to the theater when I go.
That's the most Canadian thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So looping back to the Kraken, Jaime, it's the 21st is the day that it all happens. July 21st is when they do the expansion draft, where they get to pick the players from the other teams.
Do they get the first pick, the Kraken?
They do not have the first pick in the draft. I think they ended up with either the second or the third. I can't remember how that ended up shaking.
I think it was the second.
I think you're right, Jaime. I think it's the second.
Which surprised me on the rules.
Is there like a Sidney Crosby, Wayne Gretzky kind of guy coming up?
Although they could end up with Owen Power, which is funny.
Why?
Because you mentioned Owen Power earlier, didn't you?
Owen North.
Oh, Owen North. Okay. Owen Power is the top ranked prospect in the draft.
No, Owen North is a friend of mine. Was it Owen North not a hockey player?
Nolan was a hockey player.
Nolan, okay. No, I know a guy named Owen North. That's where that name came from. Okay.
But it's been an interesting week for those of us who are also hockey fans. A lot of teams are basically trying to figure out who they're going to protect and who they're going to leave open for the Kraken to pick. And there's some players who have large contracts that they're taking a gamble on that the Kraken may or may not want, or that the Kraken may pick, but then flip to another team or something. So today it was Shea Weber. I think they're not going to protect him from Montreal, who's playing in the Stanley Cup Finals a couple weeks ago, and Ben Bishop, the starting goalie for the Dallas Stars, is going to be available. And I was like, you know what? I'm curious to see what kind of team the Kraken are going to put together. This could actually be a pretty competitive team depending on who they pick.
Yeah, but so coming back to the playoffs for a minute, like my concern about the way they played the season this year was how many times did the Montreal Canadiens get to play against the Tampa Bay Lightning in this regular season? None.
0. Yeah.
Right. So the whole, Canadian League or whatever they called it, and the whole American League.
Scotia North.
Is that what they called it?
Yeah, they all had brand sponsors. So it was like the North, the East, the West, and the Central or something.
So the West would be, but we didn't cross the border, right? So
nope.
So none of the Canadian teams got to play any of the American teams. So we had no idea how the Canadians or any Canadian team compared to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who walked away with the series.
Poorly, I think, is the answer. All the teams played poorly against Tampa. But, I mean, Tampa was a powerhouse. Again, they had one of the best players in the league. Nikita Kucherov was...
the goalie.
No. Their number one forward. He missed the entire season because he had to have surgery. And so basically they put him on injured reserve. They got to spend the money on other players, but the cap doesn't apply during the playoffs. So they brought him back for the playoffs. So people were complaining about this. Essentially, if they had that, they were like $15 million over the salary cap if there had been a salary cap, they wouldn't have been able to ice that team. So essentially they were playing like the Tampa Bay All-Stars. So no team was going to beat Tampa Bay. If I'd known Kucherov was going to be coming back, I'd have put like every penny I had on them to win the Stanley Cup. I wasn't sure if he was going to come back and be healthy, but he came back like a monster and they just destroyed everybody. But of course they did. They're essentially icing, 2 extra All-Stars per game. Right. Yeah, there was no like due respect. And, again, I with a deep seething passion hate the Montreal Canadiens because that's how I was raised. But I respect the fact that they had this great run, but there was no world in which they were going to beat the Tampa Lightning. There's just no way.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next year because Tampa won't be able to ice that team again. Like they're going to have to make some tough decisions because they're over the cap by like $15 million.
Oh, I see. Right.
So is that a soft cap or a hard cap?
It's a hard cap. Like you literally can't, you have to forfeit a game if you're over the cap.
Oh, interesting. So it's an NFL style hard cap. Okay.
It is a rock hard cap. And it's been a tough couple of years for hockey given the pandemic and the lack of income and everything else. So it's a pretty flat cap right now too. So, if you have these players under big contracts, you have to be creative on how you're going to get, I think it was Vegas early this year was so close to the cap that for some games they only dressed 16 guys. You can dress 23, but they actually like had to send guys to send guys to the minors or like basically not dress them and only had like just enough players to actually play the game.
Naked players? Wow.
Because they would have been in circumvention of the cap if they played enough players. Like that's how tough things have been as far as trying to like stay okay on the okay side of this stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting it's gonna be an interesting couple of years for hockey as hopefully the revenue starts to ramp back up. And it doesn't hurt that they just collected a very large paycheck from some people in Seattle. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it shakes out.
Crazy.
But again, I think looking at who they have available to pick up and either pick up and keep or pick up and trade, I think Seattle could be good really quickly. I don't think they're gonna necessarily do what Vegas did and like become instant, Stanley Cup contenders in the West, but I think they could be really competitive really fast.
I'm learning here and I'm like, okay, so the Kraken are supposed to go into the Pacific Division.
Yep.
Does somebody get moved out?
No. So the way that they had done it, because they had already expanded to add Vegas, there was actually 2 less teams in the West than there were in the East, just because of geography. And so when Vegas moved in there, they moved into the one division and they're moving Seattle into the Pacific as well. And that way it'll even out. So there'll be an even 16 teams in the East, 16 teams in the West.
But it seems like, maybe I'm looking at the wrong Wikipedia page, it seems like the Pacific Division would end up being 2 teams bigger than the Central.
So are you looking at this season's?
No, it's just showing me seasons. I looked up, how many games are there in hockey? Because I was like, oh, that's kind of weird that they didn't play every team. Like, oh, there's 82 games in a season and only, going to be 32 teams now, right?
So you're right. It is. It's Arizona is actually moving to the Central Division so that Seattle can be accommodated in the Pacific. That was the move.
Okay, I was wondering if somebody was going to move to even it out.
Arizona was in the Pacific, but they were kind of an outlier because they were pretty far removed from the Pacific stuff. So now they're going to be in the same group with Dallas and Nashville and Minnesota and St. Louis, Chicago.
Yeah, there's not really a good, I looked geographically, I was like, all right, obviously Anaheim, Los Angeles, San Jose, Vancouver, Seattle clearly are Pacific. You can argue Vegas, given how far in they are. You can argue Arizona and Calgary and Edmonton. I had no idea where they were, but I looked, I was like, oh, they're basically Arizona and Vegas. So there was no good way to sort that.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado and Arizona were kind of the sort of outliers, although Vegas definitely closed the gap a little bit, but they were the ones in Middle America that were like removed from all local rivalries, if you will.
Yeah.
Because you could sort of draw a line. You go like, okay, Winnipeg down to Minnesota, down to Chicago, down to St. Louis, down to Nashville. Some of these make sense sort of regionally. But of course, the East Coast stuff, it's just clustered, right? Although, again, the Tampa Bay and Florida being sort of way down there, especially since they moved Atlanta to Winnipeg, it's a little confusing. But yeah, you're screwed basically. If you're in the Central or the West, you're screwed because you have to spend half your time on a plane.
Right.
There's a reason why a lot of players prefer, if they can, to play their careers on the East Coast, just because if you're playing, for example, for the New York Rangers, you know, a bunch of your games are playing against New Jersey, Long Island, Philadelphia, Washington, Boston. You know, you're on a plane for like, you know, half an hour going to some of these places, or you literally hop on a bus and go to them. Whereas if you're in, you know, Las Vegas or Colorado, you have to basically get on a plane to go long distances to get to any other team. And so you spend a lot more time on the road. You spend a lot more time, you know, out of your comfort zone. And yeah, it's tough geography.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. I'm like, there is quite the spread from Colorado over to Nashville.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's quite a lot, as opposed to, I have no idea why there are 3 New York teams. I'm just going to call the New Jersey Devils another New York team because...
Oh, they are. They ostensibly are. They're playing in Newark. I mean, come on. It's right across the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then again, like, look at that. If you look at that group, you're like, with the exception of those 2 teams in Florida, like, yeah, you could do a road trip and see all those games in consecutive, you know, very short order. Even the North Division, again, it's, you know, it's Columbus, Detroit, Buffalo, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and Boston, right? So like they're all like right there.
Yeah, wow. Oh.
Yeah, I mean a road trip for the Leafs to play in Buffalo is like an hour and 20-minute bus ride.
Yeah, I'm looking at the geography here. Okay, Montreal and Ottawa. Got it.
Yeah, it'll start to get more into your memory as you start getting immersed as a Kraken fan. But yeah, it's pretty funny how the way these things have to be organized. And it's funny because the NHL kind of teased the city of Quebec City when they were going through this expansion process, sort of saying, well, you know, you guys don't have a really good rink to play in. And so they built this beautiful new arena in Quebec City in the hope of bringing back a Nordiques team. And if you looked at the geography, you were like, well, it doesn't make any sense to add a team to Quebec City where they need to add teams as the West. And of course, the next 2 expansion teams went to Vegas and Seattle. And so now there's this beautiful, modern, empty arena in Quebec City just waiting for an American team to fall.
I don't know a lot about the Rangers versus Islanders. I don't know if that's a Yankees versus Mets sort of thing, but I would say coming in as a complete newbie and blaspheming left and right, I'd be like, I don't think you need the Islanders. I think they should go to Quebec City.
Yeah, and that was actually, there was a thought for a while that could happen because the Islanders were playing in a dump in Unionville, New York, way out on the island, and the building was decrepit and it was just not up to standards. So they moved them to Brooklyn to play where the Nets play, but the fans didn't follow them. Nobody from the island from like deep in Long Island wanted to go to Brooklyn to watch games, and they didn't really grow a new crowd there. So they moved back to that same dump in Unionville, and now they're building them a new arena there. So I think they're staying put. They actually have a pretty hardcore, loyal hockey crowd in Long Island. Like the crowds are I don't know if you caught any of the playoff run, but when the Islanders made it into the second round, and they were or the third round, I guess they played into the semifinals, and the crowds were great. Like they are pretty rabid fans out there. But you're right. I mean, some of them it doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. I mean, you can make the same case for, you know, Anaheim versus Los Angeles. Some of these ones that are bunched up, but that's the Gretzky effect, right? Wayne Gretzky goes to Los Angeles in 1988 and is so popular and popularizes hockey in that area that they end up with, you know, all these expansion teams. You end up with, you know, San Jose, you end up with Anaheim, you end up with, you know, this sort of Minnesota moves to Dallas and becomes the Stars, and you end up with this whole Gretzky effect that spreads across there. You end up with the Phoenix Coyotes expansion club, but they're now the Arizona Coyotes. So yeah, it you know, some of these you don't think they'll make a lot of sense, but you know, I mean, without Gretzky going there, you don't end up with the Arizona Coyotes. Without the Arizona Coyotes, you don't get Austin Matthews, who grows up as a hockey fan in Phoenix, Arizona, of all places, and now is the best goal scorer in the league. So it is what it is, you know.
Yeah. Gretzky had that whole Hollywood vibe going too. Like he had that whole, you know, married an
actress and had all the celebrities coming out to games, and he just really grew the cachet of the game.
He had what's the Chicago Bull dude?
Jordan.
Jordan, he came to his games and he hung out. He hung out with some pretty. I mean, he was top of the game. I mean, he really did put hockey on the map for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as huge as he was here in Canada, he really did bring it up a notch in the States. And
Yeah.
you know, when I started watching hockey in, you know, the late 70s, early 80s, when I was a little kid, there was 21 teams in the league. There'll be 32 now with Seattle joining. You know, and it really has grown the popularity, you know, to a point. It's not just a regional sport anymore. It can really thrive in a lot of places you wouldn't think, like, you know, Florida, the Midwest, you know, places like Arizona and Anaheim and, you know, all over the place.
I don't know if you guys ever saw the, I think it was the early 90s cartoon of Pro Stars.
Pro Stars!
Which had Michael Jordan representing basketball, Bo Jackson representing baseball, and you can say spiritually football. And Gretzky, of course, was representing hockey.
Yeah.
What, did they solve crimes and murders?
They didn't solve murders from what I recall, and I have not seen this since the 90s. They did solve crimes they were like a James Bond-esque secret agent sort of.
Really?
Secret agents with these incredibly well-known people, right? Like, here's Michael Jordan.
Were they voiced by the actual people, or?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they found people who kind of like sounded like.
Did they have like a van that they go around with snacks and stuff? And
there was a cereal.
And a sidekick dog.
There was a cereal. I remember eating Pro Star cereal that had Wayne Gretzky on the box with his blonde mullet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had the James Bond-esque gadgets where their various sporting goods would be like grappling hooks or flotation balloons or something. You know.
Yeah.
That sort of
going
thing.
into YouTube right now and looking up.
It's there.
Pro Stars.
Yeah. Fighting crime, helping children, and protecting the environment. Because that's what I think of.
Yeah, it's definitely of that era from like Captain Planet sort of thing.
Yeah. It was only 13
Michael
episodes
Jordan,
total.
Gretzky, the football
Bo
player.
Jackson.
Bo Jackson. Yeah.
Bo Jackson.
Yeah. They did not do their own voices. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky, voiced by Townsend Coleman, he typically plays the role of comic relief. Inexplicably, his mind is always on food.
Gretzky?
Michael Jordan is the leader of the troupe. Exceptionally smart and talented with complicated contraptions. He's like the MacGyver of... he encourages children to study mathematics and the sciences. Well, again, why wouldn't you think that? Right. Bo Jackson provides the proverbial muscle for the heroes. He's immensely strong and has a bit of a mean streak. His strength often approaches superhuman levels, such as in the series opening when he uses a gigantic tree trunk like a club against a logging robot.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess with Gretzky, they went with the like the Shaggy and Scooby model for eating, because you look at the character designs and like, which of these guys eats a lot? I'm like, the guy who literally weighs twice as much as everybody else. Like, that dude's gonna have to consume like 5,000 calories to maintain that muscle.
Yeah, it was a bit of a bonkers premise for a show.
Well, speaking of that, I guess speaking of bonkers, I gotta head off to Lullaby Land.
Yep, I guess we gotta do that.
Oh, there's the Pro Star cereal from 1984.
Oh, yeah.
Gretzky on the cover.
Gretzky in his Kings jersey with the flow going.
Free Nintendo.
Yep.
Inside the box. I'm sure it was not probably a patch or something like that for your jeans. All right, folks.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Talk to you anon.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.